At this hour, international news. An international team of scientists held a press conference and announced a sensational discovery. In the permafrost of the far east of Siberia, a prehistoric supervirus has been found. This giant virus has already become the fourth giant virus known to humanity. Previously, scientists had discovered another similar specimen in the same region. According to experts, the discovery was made a year ago, but the information had been kept secret until now. Research is still ongoing, and at this moment it remains unknown whether the virus is capable of infecting humans or animals. Some specialists note, as long as the permafrost remains frozen, there is no reason for concern.
I jumped up, everything matched. The star seed had warned me, in 10 days, a viral outbreak would begin. Without wasting a second, I studied survivalist forums, gathered supplies, and in just 2 days turned an old minibus into an armored shelter, removed the seats, installed a bed, reinforced the doors, and upgraded the engine and body. When the world collapsed, I was ready. Then they appeared, frightened, desperate girls begging for shelter. One in a torn dress, another covered in blood, and a third crying by the roadside. "Please, take us with you," they begged. I opened the door. Together, we drove through the dead city, toward a world where a new life was beginning. Guys, if you haven't seen the previous parts, you'll find the links in the description and the pinned comment. Now, let's get to the story. I didn't see that wrong, did I? Those are military vehicles, right? These few figures were all on the rooftop. Behind them, a large SOS, emergency rescue, was painted with oil paint. They had heard the sound of a helicopter before. But when they rushed to the rooftop like crazy, waving their hands frantically, the helicopter had already flown away. Unable to control their excitement, someone had shouted, which attracted zombies and almost got them killed. Since then, they had taken turns keeping watch here almost every day. Whether it was a team of survivors or the military, they desperately wanted to see people, living people. Not endless hordes of zombies. Their situation was miserable because they were just ordinary people. There was only one person among them with powers, but she wasn't of much use, only helpful when running away. Of course, if not for that, they wouldn't have survived this long. In short, they were like rats struggling in the gutter, and after missing that helicopter and falling into despair, they now saw hope again. The military had come. But when they shared the news with other survivors and more than 10 people gathered on the rooftop, they were shocked to see that the military had set up camp just outside the city. What are they doing? Why won't they come into the city? The powered survivor among them also came up to the rooftop. At first, she was just as excited as the others. But gradually, her excitement faded into confusion. This survivor with powers was named Yen Fangfei. She was actually quite young, just in her early 20s, but among this group, her word was law. She was also the only relatively clean person in the group. The rest were all disheveled and dirty. Only she had managed to at least wash her face, showing a decent-looking face. But even then, her hair was dirty, and although she had changed into clean clothes, she still gave off a faint body odor. In the apocalypse, Yen Fangfei didn't dare wear perfume, afraid it would attract zombies. Yen, maybe it's because it's dark now. They'll definitely come tomorrow. Another female survivor said nervously. She was a bit older than Yen Fangfei and spoke very intimately. Maybe she was standing too close. Yen Fangfei frowned slightly. So smelly. She knew this woman was trying to suck up to her. Tomorrow, Yen Fangfei was hesitant. She had powers, not for combat, but she believed her ability was special. As long as she could join the military, she was sure she would be valued. Then she wouldn't have to live like this anymore. She didn't want to live like this another second. But everyone else wanted to wait until tomorrow. What's that? They saw a minibus pulling away from the military convoy. They had seen the minibus earlier but had paid no attention to it because the military vehicles had drawn all their focus. Now this minibus was driving in their direction, but it didn't get far before stopping by the roadside. Then, Yen Fangfei saw several people get off the bus. At first, she was stunned, because none of them were in military uniforms. But then her eyes widened. They were all women. And they were so clean, with smooth hair, not a speck of dirt on them. Even though the distance wasn't close, Yen Fangfei could see clearly. One of the girls even stretched lazily after getting off the bus. Seeing these women, Yen Fangfei stared. Were these the women living under the military's protection? They hadn't suffered at all. They didn't have to live in filth like she did, didn't have to live in fear every day, didn't have to protect others. She always made sure to stay as clean as possible, but compared to those women, she looked like she'd crawled out of a garbage dump. Are they survivors too? They don't look like soldiers, someone nearby said. Yen Fangfei turned and saw that the survivors, especially the few men, were staring at those women with surprise, as if they were what real women looked like. An odd, unsettling emotion welled up inside her, making her feel irritated. They're just parasites, traded their bodies, and they'll be abandoned when they're no longer useful, Yan Fangfei said. After so long living in this kind of pressure, and recently missing a chance to be rescued, her mood had been very bad. These women's appearance triggered her pent-up frustration. She had special powers, she deserved to live better than those women. Fix the sheets. We can't just wait, make a banner, attract their attention. Yan Fangfei said. She was still very worried. This might be her only chance, she didn't want to miss it. If not for everyone being so afraid of dying, she would have made them go try to ask for help. By the roadside, Jiang Lushi watched as the female scientist Qin Yu gathered crops from the edge of a rice field under the protection of Jiang Zhuiying and Ing. Even though there were few zombies around and no mutated beasts in sight, Qin Yu still only moved around the edge of the field, very cautious. The other 3 scientists weren't botanists, so they stayed with the military to help set up camp. My mom says that after the apocalypse, something changed in the plants too. Maybe it's due to the environment, Qin Xiaonan said, sitting on the bus doorstep, swinging her legs. Is that change good or bad? Jiang Lushi asked. Qin Xiaonan rested her chin in her hands and thought for a moment, not sure yet. Mom says if you look at it by pre-apocalypse standards, it's definitely bad. But now, with people's bodies and immunity stronger, maybe it's still edible. As long as humans are still alive, we'll need to grow food again someday, otherwise, we'll run out. They say the Xingqing Bay city has good conditions for farming, that's why my mom went there, Qin Xiaonan said. Are you going to study botany too? Li Yusin asked. Of course not. I'm going to learn how to fight, Qin Xiaonan replied. This little girl seemed really serious. At that moment, Ran Qiyu suddenly turned her head and looked toward the direction they had come from. There are zombies heading toward the camp. Let's go back, Ran Qiyu said. Professor Qin, time to go. Jiang Lushi shouted. Meanwhile, on that tall building. They're leaving. What about the banner? It's okay. We'll wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow. They all watched the minibus leave, not daring to shout, not daring to cross the zombie-infested streets. Yan Fangfei stared at that minibus, clenching her fists. She didn't want this kind of life. She wanted to be more glamorous than those women. During the day it didn't feel like much, but when night fell and all 5 women plus the little girl were staring at Jiang Lushi, it got really awkward. Before, even with Li Yusin included, the beds and sofa were already not enough. Now, with Professor Qin and her daughter added, space became even more limited. Feeling the awkward atmosphere, Jiang Lushi rubbed his chin. The interior of the mobile base vehicle had just been upgraded and optimized, yet it still wasn't enough. Squeeze in, Jiang Lushi said helplessly. Professor Qin and her daughter were given 1 bed. Jiang Zhuiying and Ing each took 1 bed as well. Li Yusin and Ran Qiyu hesitated back and forth, and finally, Li Yusin slept on the sofa while Ran Qiyu shared the carpet with Jiang Lushi. The space inside the vehicle wasn't big, but it was well ventilated, so even with so many people, it didn't feel stuffy. Listening to the rustling sounds of people turning over, Li Yusin lay on the sofa, eyes gently closed. So this is how they usually sleep. Li Yusin still felt it was hard to fall asleep, but deceiving Ran Qiyu and the others, she was kind of used to it by now. Still, in the apocalypse, this was already a very good situation. Having lived in tents before, Li Yusin felt that sleeping in this vehicle was happiness. She looked out the window for a while and saw a soldier on guard duty in the distance, lying there motionless with his gun. She almost thought he was asleep. But when it was time to switch shifts, the soldier immediately stood up. Jiang Liushi's vehicle was parked at the other end of the camp, some distance from the soldiers. Actually, he relied on the vehicle's defense and used it like an outpost, stopping on the city side. Unknowingly, Li Yusin fell asleep. It was her first night together with the Stone Shadow team since she joined them. But inside that tall building, Yan Fangfei didn't sleep at all. She kept her eyes open, staring at where the army was camped. This opportunity was too important for her. She absolutely could not miss it. Why won't the army come? The more Yan Fangfei thought about it, the more she felt that just waiting was too risky. Would the army really come tomorrow? Even if they entered the city, it didn't mean they would notice them. And thinking more clearly, once the army entered the city, surrounded by tall buildings on all sides, their attention would be on the streets, not on her. Yan Fangfei thought anxiously. She felt that scenario was very likely. But crossing a horde of zombies at night? Too dangerous. I think we should try to break out. In the middle of the night, she woke up the group of a dozen male and female survivors. But actually, they weren't really sleeping either. With hope for survival right outside, how could they sleep soundly? But breaking out? I've calculated it carefully. The distance between us and the army isn't far, Yan Fangfei said. It's actually less than 1,000 meters in a straight line. But the zombies, a survivor said. There aren't that many zombies. Yan Fangfei immediately cut him off. There are lots on the main roads, but fewer in the side alleys. And I have an idea. As she spoke, Yan Fangfei took out a phone. She had found this phone in the building. Luckily, it still had power and could be turned on. If we set an alarm to go off every 5 minutes, and secretly place the phone in the opposite direction of where we want to break out, it will attract the zombies' attention, continuously. That way, breaking out will be easier, Yan Fangfei explained. The survivors looked at each other. They were all dirty and unkempt, hadn't had a full meal in days, their eyes sunken, faces yellow and thin, lips cracked. Even the zombies looked better than them now. After all the torture from the zombies, who among them had the guts to go out and place the phone? The phone will get destroyed by zombies as soon as it rings, one survivor said. Yeah, and won't the zombies in the direction we're heading toward also get attracted over? That makes it even less safe, another added. Seeing how cowardly they looked, Yan Fangfei felt extremely irritated. If she didn't still need their help to break out, she wouldn't bother talking to them. Forget the phone plan. It was just a suggestion. Yan Fangfei put the phone down, a shadow flashing in her eyes. These people were not only useless, they were also cunning. How did she end up stuck with people like this? Then we break out directly. I'll use my power to protect everyone, Yan Fangfei said. There's no way to survive here. This place was a commercial area to begin with, not many places sell food. We've already gathered almost everything we can. If we want to survive, this is our only chance. As long as I'm here, there's still hope. If nothing else worked, this was it. Yan Fangfei emphasized her ability. Though she didn't have combat power, if these people wanted to live, they had to protect her. So even though breaking out was dangerous, this group would serve as her cover. Less than 1,000 meters, she had to make it out alive. Her eyes reddened as she stared at them, watching as they hesitated, thought it over, and finally agreed with her. Yan Fangfei was thrilled. Those people were afraid, but also hopeful. They felt what she said made sense. Yan Fangfei suppressed her excitement and said, "Then let's not waste time. Let's get ready." Under her urging, the survivors moved to the back door of the building. They quietly removed the barricades blocking the door, revealing a metal door. Once they opened that door, they would be facing countless zombies. Yan Fangfei was both nervous and scared. Once she reached the army, she wouldn't have to live like this anymore. Her hair hadn't been washed in so long, she probably had lice, it was so itchy she thought she would die. Before the apocalypse, she had never suffered like this. As a special ability user, Yan Fangfei was already imagining her bright future. That was the kind of life she deserved. Just as Li Yusen was about to fall asleep, she suddenly opened her eyes. At the same time, Jiang Lushur suddenly sat up from the carpet beside her. Though he'd been asleep, Jiang Lushur's face didn't show any trace of drowsiness. It was like he had just closed his eyes to rest. His deep black eyes looked especially sharp under the faint moonlight. Almost at the same moment, Ying also sat up. Jiang Zhuiying and Ran Qiyu woke up right after. "There's movement," Jiang Lushur said, putting on his clothes. They had already heard it, shrieking screams coming from a distance. Ran Qiyu immediately expanded her mental field and began sensing the situation. "There are survivors coming this way," Ran Qiyu said, surprised. It wasn't strange for there to be survivors in the city, but at this time, this noise, they'll attract the zombie horde. "Let's go check it out," Jiang Lushur said. Ran Qiyu nodded, then used her mental link to inform Zhu Changqing of Jiang Lushur's decision, asking him to stay with the team and continue protecting the scientists. Last night, the military had set up camp, and the scientists had all been sleeping in tents. Now, they were all startled awake. Professor Qin also woke up. Holding Xiaonan in her arms, she looked a bit anxious. "What's going on?" "It's okay, don't worry. The captain will take care of it," Li Yusen reassured her. Ying got into the driver's seat and, in one smooth motion, started the bus and stepped on the gas. With a loud vroom, the minibus made a sharp turn and sped toward the city. There were many abandoned cars on the main road. The city ahead was pitch black. In this situation, all they could hear were the occasional screams from up ahead. One scream had just started and was cut off immediately. Anyone could imagine what happened to that survivor. Professor Qin's face instantly turned pale, and she quickly covered Xiaonan's ears. This was actually her first time leaving the safe zone, and as a plant researcher, she hadn't even seen a zombie or mutant beast corpse before. On the road earlier, she managed to stay calm when encountering zombies, but now, hearing survivors scream. Xiaonan hadn't seemed scared before either, but now a trace of panic appeared on her face. Soon, Jiang Lushur and the others saw a zombie horde up ahead. Even in the dark, the zombies ran very fast, their eyes faintly glowing like a pack of hungry wolves, but even more terrifying. Ordinary people would be frozen with fear at the sight of these zombies. In front of the zombies were two human figures. They were running for their lives, but the distance between them and the zombies was closing quickly. Suddenly, one of them fell and shouted, "Help me! Help!" But the companion running with him didn't even turn back and just kept sprinting forward. Soon, the minibus rushed in. "Help! Help!" The one running in front was Yen Fangfei. When she saw the minibus coming toward her, she was overjoyed and shouted loudly. She had finally escaped. She had overestimated the usefulness of those survivors. She had almost died with them. Seeing the minibus approach, Yen Fangfei reached out her hand. As soon as it stopped and opened the door, she would rush in. Then she could finally say goodbye to that miserable life. But the minibus ignored her expectant face and zoomed right past her. The vehicle charged straight at the zombies. Yen Fangfei's eyes widened. What was this? Trying to die? She froze for a second, then quickly kept running. She knew the military was in that direction. Yen Fangfei was already nearly exhausted, but she didn't dare stop. Her heart was full of hope. Thud. 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 She heard heavy crashing sounds, and the vehicle noise was still approaching, getting closer and closer. Yen Fangfei finally looked back, and was shocked. That minibus came back completely unharmed? She looked past the bus and saw that there wasn't a single standing figure left on the road. The minibus had run over all the zombies? As for that companion, his fate was sealed the moment he fell. Yen Fangfei couldn't believe it. The minibus looked cheap at first glance, that's why she thought they were courting death. But reality overturned her assumptions. Stop! Stop! As the minibus came closer, Yen Fangfei waved her hands. With a screech, the minibus stopped in front of her. It had been driving without headlights, and now there was still fresh blood dripping from the front. Yen Fangfei shivered at the sight. But once it stopped, she finally felt real relief. She walked up to the door, which opened at that moment. I really can't run anymore. Do you have water? Yen Fangfei had already seen it. The inside of this vehicle was luxurious. It was actually an RV. There were sofas, beds, a table, and on the table, was that Coke? Several bottles of drinks? Yen Fangfei's throat went dry. She hadn't had clean water in so long. She hurriedly tried to get on the bus, but a figure stood at the door, blocking her. She paused, looked up. Why? As soon as she said two words, Yen Fangfei's eyes widened like she had seen a ghost. Standing at the door, Jiang Lushur was looking her over, with Ying beside him. Wait, Jiang Lushur said. But Yen Fangfei didn't answer him. Instead, she suddenly screamed, "It's you! Keep it down!" Jiang Zhuiying scolded immediately. Yen Fangfei ignored her and stared straight at Li Yusin next to Jiang Lushur. You're Li Yusin? Huh? Li Yusin squinted at her carefully. You're Yen Fangfei? Yen Fangfei was so dirty, Li Yusin didn't recognize her at first. Jiang Lushur was also surprised. Yen Fangfei? He remembered her. Yen Fangfei had high status in their class. Her family was rich, she dressed fashionably, all name-brand stuff, but he was never close with her. It's me. Yen Fangfei noticed the flicker of confusion and surprise on Li Yusin's face, and anger rose in her heart. Why did it have to be Li Yusin? Compared to Li Yusin's clean appearance, she looked like she'd crawled out of a sewer, stinking all over. Meeting a classmate in such a state, Yen Fangfei wasn't happy at all. To think we'd run into each other here? Jiang Lushur, you remember her, right? Li Yusin asked in surprise and some joy. Seeing a familiar survivor made her genuinely happy. Jiang Lushur? Yen Fangfei thought for a second. Don't really remember. She was already in a foul mood and now even more impatient. Li Yusin, could you give me some water? I'm dying of thirst. She was eyeing those cokes, those drinks. They were only a meter or two away, but Li Yusin was wasting time talking about Jiang Lushur and other pointless stuff. But just then, the young man said again, wait. Yen Fangfei was truly going crazy, she wanted a drink so badly. How did you get here? The young man asked. Hearing the question, a flash of panic appeared in Yen Fangfei's eyes. She had already thought of how to answer, but when actually questioned, her heartbeat suddenly sped up. I don't know, I just kept running, Yen Fangfei said. How many companions did you have? Jiang Lushur continued. 17 in total, Yen Fangfei answered. And the others? I don't know either, we got separated along the way. Yen Fangfei shook her head. Her palms were already soaked in sweat. How could she not know? They hadn't just gotten separated, she had deliberately pointed some of them in the wrong direction. From the start, she hadn't expected all of them to make it out alive. Those survivors didn't want to go place the phone to draw the zombies away, Yen Fangfei agreed with them. But she thought those survivors were just too naive. If no one made a sacrifice, how could the rest get through the zombies? Maybe everyone hoped they wouldn't be the one to die, and thought they could use others' deaths to get out alive. So Yen Fangfei felt she hadn't done anything wrong. She was just stronger than them. She had an ability. That's why she was the one who survived in the end. Actually, those she misled, whether they were dead or not, she didn't know. Maybe they were still alive, but stuck among zombies, they would die sooner or later. Even though Yen Fangfei kept telling herself she did nothing wrong, it was her first time doing something like this. And the young man in front of her, his eyes were too calm, as if he could see right through her. The woman standing behind him had gray eyes, and when she looked at Yen Fangfei, it felt like she too could see into her heart. This made Yen Fangfei feel extremely guilty and irritated. Who even are you? Why are you asking me so many questions? I was scared too, how can I remember clearly? Yen Fangfei was getting angry, but then suddenly froze. This man looked familiar. Jiang Lushi noticed her confusion and smiled. I'm Jiang Lushi. Back in class, his presence had been low. But with someone like Yen Fangfei, who always looked down on others, it was normal she didn't remember him. Still, after 3 years in the same class, she found his face familiar the more she looked. Yen Fangfei's face showed clear shock. No wonder Li Yusin asked if she remembered Jiang Lushi. He was in the vehicle too. But what was going on? Why were they together? Yen Fangfei knew they lived in this one vehicle, she'd been watching them. Back then, Li Yusin was like a goddess. So many boys liked her. Her popularity made even Yen Fangfei jealous. And Jiang Lushi? He was just a poor kid with a little sister dragging behind him. And now? Li Yusin was with Jiang Lushi to survive? And with so many other women? Yen Fangfei looked at Li Yusin with a strange expression. Deep down, she looked down on her. She didn't expect Jiang Lushi to be doing so well. Maybe he was an ability user? But his energy was so weak, even if he had powers, they weren't great. And normal types of abilities couldn't compare to hers. Thinking that, Yen Fangfei smiled. What a coincidence, 2 of my classmates in the same vehicle. That makes things easier. Hurry, take me to the army. Her heart was full of hope. Li Yusin just got lucky by clinging to Jiang Lushi and was already living well, drinking coke. If she joined the army, wouldn't she be able to go back to her old life? Wait. Jiang Lushi raised his hand to stop her. You still haven't answered my question. Jiang Lushi, what are you doing? Are you not going to let me get in the car? Yen Fangfei forced a smile, stunned. If you won't answer, I won't let you in, Jiang Lushi said. Yen Fangfei was completely frozen. She was already trying to be polite, and he was still being so harsh? But Jiang Liushi's expression was cold. Ran Shiyu had already told him mentally, Yen Fangfei was lying. Jiang Lushi didn't remember much about her, but in the past few seconds, he recalled a few things. Back in school, Yen Fangfei used to gang up with others to bully girls. But in front of boys, she had a good reputation, always knew how to please them. Even boys who knew they weren't good enough still followed her around. Of course, that was all before the apocalypse. No matter her past, Jiang Lushi didn't have a strong opinion of her. If she was just a lucky survivor, Jiang Lushi would have taken her to the army to be handled, maybe work in logistics, or be sent to Xingqing base. But now, late at night, a group of survivors crossed through a zombie horde, and only Yen Fangfei survived. Jiang Lushi had also seen her abandon a companion. And she was lying. He couldn't ignore that. Yen Fangfei felt angry and tried to hold it in. It's complicated. I'll explain everything to the military. It wasn't easy for me to survive. If you're not happy for me, fine, but why treat me like a criminal? Jiang Lushi didn't reply. Yen Fangfei finally snapped, Li Yusin, are you just going to watch? Jiang Lushi, maybe I offended you before, but now you're leaving me to die. Even if I need to be questioned, it's not your place. I want to see the army's leaders. Li Yusin looked at her and said nothing. She knew Jiang Lushi wouldn't make trouble without reason. When she first recognized Yen Fangfei, she was happy. But now, thinking calmly, her escape was indeed suspicious. Yen Fangfei, if you have nothing to hide, just answer the questions, Li Yusin said. You people? Fine. So this is how you treat classmates. I want to see how your superiors will respond. Yen Fangfei said angrily. At this point, she stopped feeling guilty. Her anger made her believe she was the one being wronged. Where's your leader? I am, Jiang Lushi said. You're, what? Yen Fangfei looked completely shocked. She didn't know him well, but she knew his background. He was never in the military. How could he be the leader? Even if he was an ability user and joined the army, he was in a minibus. That proved he couldn't be in charge. You're lying. Jiang Lushi didn't care whether she believed it or not. You won't answer, but your thoughts already betrayed you. Someone like you, I can't let on this bus. Since we were classmates, I'll leave your fate to yourself. If you could escape alone, I'm sure you can survive alone too. Drive. Let's go back, Jiang Lushi said. At first, Yan Fangfei didn't believe it. But seeing them really about to drive away, she panicked. Wait. I'm an ability user. Even if you're the commander, don't you need ability users? My power is special, very useful. Yan Fangfei shouted. Even Li Yusin was in the vehicle. As an ability user, she had more value. She saw that 2 of the women on board were ordinary, and there was even a child. She was clearly more useful than them. If Jiang Lushi wanted her to stay for other reasons, she could accept that too. He wouldn't turn down a special ability user. Her power might be useful. Even if this was suspicious, ordinary people's lives couldn't compare to hers. Bang! As she was thinking, the vehicle door slammed shut, right in her face. In that moment, she saw Jiang Lushi inside, face cold, not needed. The girl holding a knife sneered and added, "You only survived because we were classmates. Be grateful." That sentence made Yan Fangfei tremble and step back. If not for being classmates, Jiang Lushi would have killed her? How could he dare? The minibus really drove away, right in front of her. Yan Fangfei stood where she was, unable to believe it. She had made up her mind, risked her life, and hardened her heart to finally escape, and in the end, they didn't need her? Not only did they not need her, they weren't even willing to take her in. Yan Fangfei stood in a daze for a long time. The cold night wind blew, and she suddenly started to shiver. From her teeth to her legs, her whole body trembled. Too cruel, Jiang Lushi and Li Yusin, these 2 were truly ruthless. They had actually left her to die. That Jiang Lushi even said she could survive alone. How could someone survive alone? He was clearly sending her to her death. Yan Fangfei's heart was filled with hatred, her mind raced with all kinds of thoughts. Let them be eaten by zombies, scream in despair. Why don't they go die? But in the end, Yan Fangfei didn't move. She felt like all strength had left her body, her heart filled with hatred and hopelessness. In the apocalypse, how could she fight against someone like Jiang Lushi, who had guns? Didn't expect to meet a classmate here, Li Yusin said with some emotion in the minibus. She turned to look in the direction they'd left Yan Fangfei. After all, they were classmates. Li Yusin still felt a bit uneasy, but she said nothing. It's not that strange. This place is close to Jiangbei. Whether she escaped here or was already here, it's not surprising, Jiang Zhuiying said. But she gave me a really bad feeling, Ran Qiyu said at this moment. Her thoughts were full of desire, the kind of person who would do anything to achieve their goal. Ran Qiyu's mental ability could sense a person's thoughts to a degree. Looking into someone's eyes, she could often perceive what they were thinking. To her, Yan Fangfei didn't seem like a good person. But she simply reported what she sensed to Jiang Lushi. Whether to let Yan Fangfei on the bus or not was up to him. Even if we don't know exactly what she did, we all saw her abandon her companion. I don't want to save someone like that, Jiang Lushi said. He wasn't some saint. He also wasn't interested in Yan Fangfei's ability. Even if her ability really was special, keeping a woman like that around was like keeping a venomous snake, it could bite at any time. Let's go back to camp. Everyone stay alert tonight. We'll leave tomorrow morning, Jiang Lushi ordered. The next morning, the convoy set out. When they passed the spot from last night, only bloodstains and some bones remained on the ground, no trace of Yan Fangfei. The convoy didn't stop and quickly moved past. As for Yan Fangfei's whereabouts, Jiang Lushi didn't care. They're gone. At that moment, Yan Fangfei was in a 2-story farmhouse in the distance, watching the convoy pass by on the road. She wasn't talking to herself. In the living room behind her sat 2 men and a woman. These 2 men and 1 woman were people she encountered last night. But thinking back, Yan Fangfei felt it wasn't she who found them, but they who found her. They had asked her many questions about Jiang Lushi and the minibus. After Yan Fangfei said she knew Jiang Lushi and Li Yusin, they suggested she stay with them. At the time, Yan Fangfei was in complete despair and didn't even question who they were, she immediately agreed. But after a few hours, she calmed down. She had a suspicion, these 3 people had come specifically for Jiang Lushi. They were only 3 people, and Jiang Lushi had a dozen in his group. Captain, that woman says Jiang Lushi's group has already left, the woman said softly. She was playing with a knife in her hand, the sharp blade spinning skillfully between her fingers, though her attention wasn't on the knife. The man she called Captain looked about 35, with a very calm face. He wore loose clothes, but it was clear from one glance that he had a strong build. Sitting on the sofa made it look small, he was definitely over 1.9 meters tall. Such height was rare among Chinese men. The man replied from his nose. No need to call me Captain. If we fail to complete Commissioner Chu's mission, we won't be going back alive. If we succeed, then he would be more than just a captain. As he spoke, he lifted his head. His eyes were cold and stern. Jiang Lushi had left Zhonghai's safe zone, but how could Chu Zhongshan let him go so easily? How could he forget the murder of his son? Chen Biao, this man, was sent by Chu Zhongshan. As Chu Zhongshan's personal bodyguard, Chen Biao had received many favors from him. Without Chu Zhongshan, he wouldn't have his current position or even be alive today. Chu Zhongshan treated him like half a son. When Chu Zhongshan learned that his only son had been killed by Jiang Lushi, Chen Biao immediately wanted to go kill him, but Chu Zhongshan stopped him. Now that Jiang Lushi had left the Zhonghai safe zone and might never return, Chu Zhongshan finally decided to deploy Chen Biao. Looking at Chen Biao's expression, the other man and the woman both felt a strange chill. Chen Biao had been an active mercenary in Africa and South America before. He was incredibly dangerous. Even before the apocalypse, Chu Zhongshan always kept him nearby. And after the apocalypse, Chen Biao awakened a supernatural ability. If Chu Zhongshan didn't want Jiang Lushi dead so badly, he would never have sent Chen Biao for this task. As for the other two, they were also skilled under Chu Zhongshan's command, but compared to Chen Biao, they were just his assistants. Even they feared him deeply. After following the convoy here, Chen Biao hadn't acted right away. Last night, they heard a commotion, and when they arrived, they found Yan Fangfei. Normally, a woman like her wouldn't have interested them, but Yan Fangfei had been cursing Jiang Lushi with clenched teeth. She knew his name and recognized him. This was the only reason she was still alive. You, Chen Biao suddenly looked at Yan Fangfei by the window. Don't pretend you didn't hear us. I know you did. Your facial expressions and movements changed slightly, you can't fool me. Yan Fangfei was startled and turned to look at Chen Biao, both wary and frightened. This man's presence put heavy pressure on her. She really hadn't dared to listen in on them, or at least tried her best to act like she wasn't. She didn't expect him to notice. She had been facing the window. How had he seen? You say you're an ability user? Chen Biao stared at Yan Fangfei's dirty face. What's your ability? Being stared at by Chen Biao, Yan Fangfei felt her hair stand on end, as if she were facing a zombie. She felt that Chen Biao was far scarier than Jiang Lushi. Toward Jiang Lushi, Yan Fangfei didn't feel fear, only hatred. In her eyes, Jiang Lushi had just gotten lucky, crawling up from the bottom of society, gaining a little power, and now showing off. Before the apocalypse, people like Jiang Lushi weren't even worth a glance from her. Someone like him was destined to never have anything to do with someone of her level. No matter how well he studied or how hard he worked, he would end up working for people like her. Even after the apocalypse, Yan Fangfei still thought she was better than Jiang Lushi. She had a special power. It was just bad luck that she got trapped in this small city right after escaping, otherwise, it wouldn't be Jiang Lushi and Li Yusin acting high and mighty in front of her. Yan Fangfei had indeed heard Chen Biao and the others talking, and she understood why they had brought her back. These people wanted to kill Jiang Lushi. Chen Biao had already seen that she heard them, but he didn't lower his voice. That meant he wanted her to hear it on purpose. Now, by asking her this question, he was testing whether she was useful. If not, Jiang Lushi was too arrogant. After the way he treated me, it's no surprise if he made enemies. He brought this on himself. Yan Fangfei thought to herself, took a deep breath, and said as calmly as she could, my ability is highly sensitive hearing. Even from over 100 meters away, I can hear the slightest sounds. If not for this ability, Yan Fangfei would never have survived. She could hear zombie footsteps from far away and avoid them. That's why the other survivors had to rely on her ears. It was because of their reliance on her hearing and trust in her words that she managed to use them as bait to distract the zombies. Of course, her plan wasn't flawless. If that last survivor hadn't reacted quickly and followed her, bringing the zombies with him, she wouldn't have nearly died. When that survivor fell, it was already good she didn't stomp on him. Why would she help? After revealing her ability, Yan Fangfei seemed to regain her confidence. She straightened up and looked at Chen Biao. Oh, that kind of ability. Human hearing ranges from 20 to 20,000 Hz. Bats can hear from 1,000 to 120,000, elephants from 1 to 20,000. Many animals can hear infrasound and ultrasound that humans can't. What's your hearing range? Chen Biao asked with a slight smile. Yan Fangfei was stunned and shook her head. I've never had the equipment to test it, but I can hear many sounds that ordinary people definitely can't. Within 100 meters, I can even catch the sound of birds flying. It is quite a special ability, Chen Biao smiled. Chen Biao didn't underestimate Jiang Lushi at all. He had thoroughly researched his combat record. Jiang Lushi was definitely a strong opponent. But Chen Biao believed that everyone had weaknesses, and by observing carefully, he could find and eliminate them. In that regard, Yan Fangfei could indeed be useful. Not to mention she knew Jiang Lushi and Li Yusin more than anyone else here. Then keep listening to your old classmates closely, the woman said with a smile. Yan Fangfei forced a slight smile and said nothing. She didn't mention that she and Jiang Lushi weren't familiar at all. This, Chen Biao motioned to the man beside him, who immediately pulled a piece of jerky wrapped in plastic wrap from his backpack and tossed it to Yan Fangfei. Take it and eat. You've probably never had it before, so your power still has potential to evolve, Chen Biao said. Yan Fangfei hadn't eaten a full meal in so long that when her eyes followed the piece of jerky, she felt like she might pass out. Even when healthy, pampered Yan Fangfei wouldn't have been able to catch it. Smack! The jerky fell straight to the ground. Yan Fangfei stared at it, gulped, hesitated for a second, then rushed to pick it up, hurriedly tore off the plastic, and started chewing. It was delicious. Even as dried meat, mutant beast meat was still very fragrant, though a bit tough. As she chewed, Yan Fangfei couldn't help but think of the drinks in Jiang Liushi's minibus. Those drinks were just casually sitting there, and several bottles at that. There were probably lots of tasty things too. Once Jiang Lushi was dead, she could eat all of it. After what happened last night, Yan Fangfei felt she had fully understood. In the apocalypse, it wasn't just zombies eating people, people ate people too. If you weren't ruthless, you couldn't live well. There was no law, no morality. If you wanted something, just take it. Yan Fangfei ate furiously. The woman watched her with a half-smile. Compared to herself, Yan Fangfei looked like a madwoman. We're moving. Follow them, Chen Biao stood up and said. This small city wasn't far from Jiangbei. Before the apocalypse, it would have been a 30-minute drive. But after the apocalypse, that journey now took several times longer. We won't enter Jiangbei directly. We'll cut across this region, it's the shortest path. But before that, we'll take a detour through the mountains. There's no choice. A factory here had a serious fire and explosion during the outbreak. Vehicles can't pass through. During a break, Zhu Changqing brought over a map and explained. Jiang Lushi looked at the map. He was very familiar with Jiangbei. The factory Zhu mentioned, he knew it. It was an acetylene plant. Acetylene explosions were extremely powerful. After the blast, it made sense that vehicles couldn't pass. When the apocalypse hit, not only did zombies pose a threat, but the chain reactions caused by the virus also led to countless deaths, like car crashes, fires, and explosions. Now, most post-apocalyptic roadblocks were caused by those events. The government couldn't have predicted this. But this mountain area, Jiang Lushi looked at the marked zone on the map. Jiangbei was surrounded by mountains, and seeing that area reminded him of the mutant beast he'd encountered when leaving Jiangbei. Looking at the red-marked mountainous region, Jiang Lushi felt a sense of unease, just like that red ink. We'd better be careful, Jiang Lushi exhaled lightly and said. Upon learning that the convoy would not be entering Jiangbei city, both Jiang Zhuiying and Li Yusin, who were born and raised there, couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Many friends and classmates had not been seen since the outbreak of the apocalypse. No one knew how many of them were still alive. In this apocalyptic world, seeing someone you once knew and knowing they were still alive always brought a kind of unexpected joy. Thinking of this, Li Yusin felt a bit of regret again. If only Yan Fangfei had a better character, meeting a classmate alive would have been something to be happy about. Captain Jiang, we're about to enter the mountains, Zhu Changqing reminded them via the walkie-talkie. At the same time, Ran Shiyu expanded her mental field. Maintaining her mental domain was a great burden, so she only used her ability at moments like this. This was the same for all abilities, whether mental or otherwise. Just like an ordinary person couldn't stay highly focused for long or sprint at full speed without rest, powers couldn't be used non-stop either. Ran Shiyu scanned the surroundings immediately after opening her mental field, but didn't detect anything unusual. Let's go into the mountains. Watch out for mutant beasts, Jiang Lushi said. The convoy entered the mountain road, flanked by thick forest on both sides, casting eerie shadows everywhere. All the soldiers became more alert, even Qin Xiaonan quieted down noticeably. After the apocalypse, plant growth changed a lot. Although the virus doesn't infect plants, the changes in animals and humans have affected them. If pre-apocalypse humans ate these plants, mutation or infection could happen. Professor Qin stared out the window, observing the plants along the way. Her main research was on crops and vegetables, but she was also interested in other plants. So now, people eating them might not only be fine, it could actually help? Jiang Zhuiying asked curiously. Professor Qin thought for a moment and nodded. You could say that. For example, mutant beast meat strengthens the body even in normal people. But there isn't enough for even ability users, let alone ordinary people. Plants are different. Different ones produce different compounds, and those compounds have also changed post-apocalypse, so their effects are different too. For instance, take artemisinin, which everyone knows comes from Artemisia annua. The post-apocalypse version of this plant could be completely different. So would the artemisinin still be an anti-malaria drug? Or would it do something else? That makes sense. If we could find a plant with benefits like mutant beast meat, it could ease the supply issue, Liusin said. It's difficult. Whether it's evolution crystals or anything else, the essence is still mutant beast meat. It's currently the only known material that can quickly restore energy and promote evolution in ability users. Professor Qin was not optimistic. Liusin gently shook her head. She was only imagining a better future. They had escaped Zhonghai and the zombie tide, but those survivors back at Zhonghai's safe zone, once their meat stores ran out, would have to risk their lives hunting again. Jiang Lushur listened to their conversation with interest. What Professor Qin said caught his attention. Suddenly, the vehicles ahead stopped. Captain Jiang, there's been a landslide up ahead. Likely caused by earlier rains. Luckily, it's not large. We're sending 2 vehicles and soldiers to clear the road. For safety, please stay with the scientists, Zhu Changqing said. A landslide? Zhu Changqing didn't want them near for safety, but no one could say how long it would take to clear the blockage, and it would be risky too. I plan to go take a look. If you all? Before Jiang Lushur could finish, the quick-witted Qin Xiaonan immediately said, Mom and I will stay in the vehicle, just with you guys. During the trip, Qin Xiaonan had noticed that the Stone Shadow team's minibus was the safest and the most comfortable. All right, Jiang Lushur nodded, then said to Ing, drive over. Another military vehicle carrying 2 scientists had already stopped. When they saw Jiang Lushur's bus approaching, and not stopping, they were a bit surprised. They had heard Zhu Changqing's orders over the walkie-talkie too. Captain Jiang, we can't help with digging work anyway, a scientist named Ping said, rolling down the window. Yes. We've got engineers with shovels, one of the soldiers added. Jiang Lushur frowned. The military had dispatched a dozen escort personnel with a mix of specialties, meant to handle most issues they'd face on the road. But now it seemed most issues didn't include landslides. Using engineering shovels would be extremely slow, they might end up spending the night here. I'll go see, maybe I can help, Jiang Lushur said. As the minibus moved forward, the scientist named Ping said helplessly, Captain Jiang is a good guy, just too young. Probably never seen a landslide before. With that much earth and stone, he'll be stunned when he gets there. Yeah, another scientist nodded. They both thought Jiang Lushur was being a bit stubborn, and he was bringing Professor Qin and her daughter with him, too. Landslides were dangerous. But Jiang Lushur didn't wait for more words. The vehicle was already moving. They couldn't stop him in time. Young and capable types like him often had some youthful recklessness. The 2 scientists could only shake their heads. We should get a bit closer too. Seeing the minibus drive off, the soldiers in the military truck felt uneasy. If a mutant beast appeared now, it'd be trouble, so they followed from a distance. Soon, the minibus reached the landslide area. The landslide wasn't large. In the middle of the Green Mountain slope was a dirt-colored scar, a pile of earth and stones blocking the narrow road. Vehicles couldn't pass. A few soldiers stood guard with rifles while others used engineering shovels to clear the larger rocks. Even Zhu Changqing was helping. His body had swelled to twice its normal size, and his exposed arms bulged with muscle. He lifted a huge rock by himself, drawing cheers from the soldiers. That strength was indeed intimidating. As the escort team's leader, Zhu Changqing's power was no joke. But there were too many rocks. Some looked about half a meter in diameter. Clearing them would take a lot of effort. Captain Jiang, why did you come here? Zhu Changqing was surprised. The cleanup would take a while, and none of them were geologists. No one could guarantee there wouldn't be a second landslide. He'd told Jiang Lushur to stay back, so why was he here? Just then, he saw the bus's roof open into a combat room, and Jiang Zhuiying appeared there, waving and shouting, My brother says, you all need to move aside. Move aside? Zhu Changqing was stunned. The soldiers also froze. Places like this can't be stayed in for long, so even Zhu Changqing was personally leading the effort, racing against time to clear the earth and rocks. Jiang Lushur's order confused many of the soldiers. These weren't troops under his command, and they had only heard of his achievements. When his orders didn't seem reasonable, resistance naturally arose. Professor Peng was especially anxious, isn't this just causing trouble? At that moment, Zhu Changqing, drenched in sweat, set down the large stone he had just managed to lift. He wiped his brow, deactivated his ability, and said, Let's follow Captain Jiang's instructions. Since even Zhu Changqing said that, the soldiers had no choice but to step aside. They silently watched the minibus, full of doubt. Are they planning to use the minibus to push these rocks away? That's just wishful thinking, Professor Peng said, pushing his glasses. Minibuses are tough, but pushing these stones aside by force is impossible. I'm not a geology expert, but even I can tell that the soil on this slope is loose. Any strong impact could cause a second landslide. A second landslide would make things even harder to clear. If this route became impassable, they would be forced to take a more dangerous path filled with zombies. If that led to casualties? Professor Peng believed Jiang Lushi hadn't considered the consequences. No, I have to go talk to him. The more he thought about it, the more he felt Jiang Lushi's approach was reckless. Ignoring the soldiers' attempts to stop him, he got out of the car and hurried over. At this moment, Jiang Lushi had parked the minibus right in front of the landslide area. Captain Jiang, you can't do this. If you ram into it, it'll cause a second landslide. Professor Peng shouted, still full of energy despite his age. Jiang Lushi replied, I don't plan to ram it. You don't? Professor Peng paused. He looked the minibus up and down. If not ramming, then what? Then if you don't plan to, let the soldiers continue clearing the debris. It's getting late, we don't have much time, Professor Peng said. I have a method. Manual clearing can't match my speed, Jiang Lushi answered. What method? Captain Jiang, you may be the team leader, but you should still tell us your plan so we can weigh in, Professor Peng pressed. You'll know in a moment, Jiang Lushi replied. Aya. Professor Peng was getting angry. He couldn't accept Jiang Lushi's vague attitude. The soldiers who were standing aside all overheard the conversation. When they exchanged glances, they were clearly unhappy. They thought Jiang Lushi planned to drive into the rocks. Now he wasn't doing that, wasn't moving, and wouldn't let them keep working. What was the point? To them, the pile of earth and stones looked like a small hill. Did Jiang Lushi think it would fly away by itself? Jiang Lushi didn't know how to explain it, so he didn't bother trying. As for the rest of the Stone Shadow team, they had no doubts about his decision. Professor Peng waited for a while, then couldn't take it anymore. Captain Zhu, wouldn't it be fine to keep clearing while we wait? If he has a solution, he can use it later. What do you say? Since he couldn't convince Jiang Lushi, he turned to Zhu Chongqing. Zhu Chongqing had a lot of faith in Jiang Lushi, and General Zhang had ordered him to cooperate with him. But Professor Peng's reasoning was solid. You're right, Professor Peng, Zhu Chongqing nodded. Let's keep clearing. With that, Zhu rolled up his sleeves and walked over to a big rock. This rock was as big as a car tire, most people couldn't even lift it. He stood in front of it, shouted, and as his muscles bulged and his shirt stretched tight, he locked his iron-like arms around the stone and used his waist to lift it. Success in one try. Impressive. AI, we should have done this earlier. Wasted 10 minutes, Professor Peng muttered. In his view, Jiang Lushi's team also had ability users, they should be helping too. Manual work might be slow, but at least it showed results. It was better than standing around doing nothing. At that moment, a shadow suddenly passed over Professor Peng's head. Startled, he cried out. The soldiers turned their heads, and were all stunned. A metallic, high-tech mechanical arm was rotating, gleaming in the sunlight. It moved precisely to the largest rock. With clicking sounds, its fingers opened, clamped the rock, tightened, and then, as if effortlessly, lifted the massive stone. Everyone felt like rubbing their eyes. Was this a sci-fi movie? A mechanical arm. They traced the arm's origin, it was connected to the minibus, extending from the front. It seemed to be part of the vehicle. Everyone was speechless. Was this minibus suddenly a crane? Professor Peng was the most shocked. He'd imagined Jiang Lushi might try something reckless, which is why he opposed him. But this? He would have never dreamed it. No matter how vivid his imagination, he could not have predicted a mechanical arm popping out of a minibus. Now, their manual work looked completely pitiful in comparison. As for safety, the mechanical arm was remote-controlled, accurate, and much safer. And it saved time and effort. Even Zhu Chongqing, holding the large rock, was stunned. He had used all his strength to lift just one rock, but that arm casually picked up a rock 3 times the size. Captain Jiang, this is, Zhu asked curiously. This was made using my ability. I wasn't sure how it would turn out until I activated it, Jiang Lushi said. He wasn't lying. As soon as he saw the landslide, he recalled that one of the upgrade paths in the Starseed system included a mechanical arm for the base vehicle. The storage had plenty of metal, plus a mutant crystal core. With 15 minutes of build time, the arm was complete. The Starseed description didn't explain much about the arm, so when Professor Peng kept questioning, Jiang Lushi couldn't explain it properly. Bro, your car turned into a digger? Jiang Zhuing blurted out. Excavator? Jiang Lushi heard Jiang Zhuing's words and saw the mocking smile on his face, and he shook his head speechlessly. You girl! Adding a mechanical arm to the base vehicle was a modification from the very beginning, done together with upgrading the mutant fuel tank. But at the start, I was unwilling to waste even one mutant crystal core. Whenever I had a little stock, I used it to increase the combat power of the base vehicle. Transporting goods, etc., was always done manually. Now I have quite a few mutant crystal cores, so I can afford to be extravagant. And with the mechanical arm, it will have many uses in the future. With a mechanical arm to help, clearing the landslide rocks becomes much faster. The large rocks are handled entirely by the base vehicle, and the smaller ones are cleared by the soldiers. Among the accompanying soldiers, many were engineering machinery troops. They had driven excavators and engineering vehicles before, including good excavator drivers. But when they saw the base vehicle driven by Ying, clearing landslide rocks, they all clicked their tongues in amazement at Ying's driving skill and at the mechanical arm. Even if an excavator is driven expertly, it still remains an excavator, inevitably clumsy in work. But this mechanical arm was completely different. It had 5 fingers, imitating human hands, able to change to any angle. Such a machine people only ever saw in robot introduction videos or sci-fi movies, used for high-tech operations. Who ever used high-tech mechanical arms like excavators? Seeing those 5 dexterous fingers, grabbing rocks of arbitrary size easily and accurately, the engineering soldiers present felt this was sheer waste of a marvel. Especially when seeing this precision mechanical arm pick up a rock weighing over 10 tons, it stunned people. The arm's strength was too great. And the base vehicle didn't look that big. How did it maintain balance when picking up a 10-ton rock? Not afraid of tipping over? Really a miracle. A black and lean veteran soldier, about 40 plus, said in amazement. His shoulder insignia had 2 thick bars and 1 thin. Though just a soldier, his rank wasn't ordinary. Having been an engineer soldier for decades, few commanders had higher status than him. Such a pity, really a pity. Captain Zhang's ability, if it had been before the apocalypse, it could truly have changed the world's industrial layout. The black lean veteran said regretfully. Many listening were shocked. Change the world sounded extreme. One just advanced excavator, is it not? A young man of about 18 or 19 said. What do you know? The black lean veteran glared at the rookie. The mechanical arm for engineering machinery is absurdly rare. Making a single machine move in a directed way is easy, but making multiple mechanical parts move together, especially for precise multi-angle motion, the difficulty increases by undetermined multiples. Do you know what a 5-axis linkage machine tool is? You don't know how many years the Chinese government suffered because of it. He got emotional discussing his own trade, then recalled pains from the past, growing more worked up. Previously our machining tools were all 3-axis linkage. Even before the apocalypse, in the country the 5-axis linkage machine tools were few and performance limited, far behind abroad. And these 5-axis linkage machine tools were strictly embargoed abroad. Back in 1983 the Japanese Toshiba company sold a few outdated 5-axis numeric control milling machines to the Soviet Union. The Soviets used them to make mother machines for military industry, including submarine propellers, causing US sonar to fail to detect them, leading the US to sanction Toshiba and arrest several executives. From 3-axis linkage to 5-axis linkage, difficulty already rose so much. But manufacturing a 5-axis machine tool is still much less difficult than this mechanical arm. This mechanical arm, however, is a hand, 5 fingers each with as many joints as a human's. What's a 5-axis machine tool? Just a drill press at the end of the day. Talking about this, especially involving the Soviet Union, the US and superpowers of the era, it changed everything. For a country's industry, the mother machine is very important, largely representing the level of its manufacturing industry. From that angle, if Captain Zhang's mechanical modification ability could truly make high-precision machinery, saying it could impact a country's industry isn't exaggeration. Of course now, this mechanical arm with multi-joints, bionic 5 fingers, each finger joint intact, was being used like an excavator. Watching big rocks being picked up one after another by the mechanical arm, the black lean veteran's facial muscles twitched. Waste of a marvel, didn't even begin to describe it. He wondered what the old generation industrial pioneers of China would think if they saw this. Under the action of the mechanical arm, in less than half an hour the landslide zone was cleared. The mechanical arm retracted. Jiang Lushur pressed the car window and said to the convoy behind, "We're good, move out." Hearing his casual words, and recalling the old veteran's introduction, all the soldiers present had somewhat unnatural expressions. Didn't this mean that one mechanical modification ability of Jiang Lushur had already outclassed the world's highest manufacturing level? This was too abnormal. Whether for combat or future production once order stabilized, Jiang Lushur's ability was at a monster level. The army moved forward in order. This mountain road had been sparsely used before the apocalypse. Zombies were few. Back when vehicles tried driving during the virus outbreak, most lost control and plunged off cliffs. Along the switchback mountain road one often saw broken guardrails, rusting thin steel, swaying slightly in the wind, as if witnessing the horror of the outbreak instant. Up ahead is Yi County of Jiangbei. The road will pass through this county, inevitable. But Yi County before the apocalypse was a small county town with just tens of thousands of people. The zombie numbers won't be too many. The threat to us should be small. Zhu Changqing pointed his finger along the road on the operational map. Yi County. Hearing the name, Jiang Lushur had a moment of daze. This modest county town had once been his mother's hometown. When he was young, he had lived in Yi County for a long time. Emotionally speaking, even though his mother had already died for many years, Jiang Lushur still did not want to see Yi County in a scene of total devastation. The army advanced along the highway. Zhu Changqing stood in the hatch of an armored vehicle, using binoculars to observe Yi County's situation. He suddenly said, it seems something unusual about Yi County. In the binoculars, the scene of dark bloodstains and corpse remains that had been imagined did not appear. Instead, deep inside Yi County near the mountain, Zhu Changqing saw a newly built city wall. And the most unbelievable thing was, this wall was built of rock. A rock city wall, its construction volume is considerable. Even a survivor team of 100 people couldn't build a 5 or 6 meter high wall like this. There's a city wall, so it seems this small Yi County has a fair number of survivors living there. Zhu Changqing said this, his voice transmitted to Jiang Lushur via the walkie-talkie. Jiang Lushur's heart skipped a beat. At that distance, he could already see the wall in the town's depths with the naked eye. Compared to the low buildings in the town, a 5 or 6 meter high wall was striking. This was the apocalypse, with engineering machinery lacking, stone materials and building materials not easy to find, and food scarce. This wall was indeed a massive project. It seemed Yi County had an extraordinary ability user, and the survivors there had preserved well, perhaps even built a simple base. That eased Jiang Lushur's mind somewhat. After all, it was a place he had lived in as a child. He very much did not want it turned into a hellscape. Shiyu. Jiang Lushur softly called Ran Shiyu. Ran Shiyu nodded. Without needing further instruction, her sense reached out, directly penetrating the wall and covering a large area behind the wall. Behind the wall there are many people, 400 or 500, roughly. Among them there are 4 or 5 ability users. 400 or 500 people? That number, for a small county town of only tens of thousands, was indeed considerable. Jiang Lushur reported the situation to Zhu Changqing. Because the town's main road passed right through this wall, no matter what, they would be entering the survivors' gathering area. The armored vehicle led the way, and a group of people rumbled toward the gathering area. Meanwhile, inside the wall, it was a totally different scene. Boss son, the army has come. So many people, so many guns. And armored vehicles. Within this gathering area, there was a palace of modest size, built in the style of a Mingqing dynasty main hall. Of course, probably due to building level limitations, many parts looked awkward. But even so, in the apocalypse, for such a palace to appear was incredible. The palace was surrounded by palace walls, even divided into a front hall and a rear palace. Outside the palace wall, there was even a 10-meter wide moat. It was formed by diverting a river in Yi County to fill the moat. Army? Armurad vehículos? The man called Boss Son wore a bright yellow long robe, looked about 40. His eyebrows were heavy, his figure tall, giving him considerable authority. Most survivor teams, when hearing an army coming, would feel overjoyed. But Boss Son, hearing the army's arrival, felt a pang of anxiety in his heart. Damn it, Yi County is such a small place, how is there an army coming? Are they bored now? Boss Son said this as he removed his long robe and changed into tight gear, then followed the scout who reported and climbed the city wall. From afar, 7 or 8 military vehicles were lined up. At the front was a 92-wheeled armored vehicle, in the middle was a strangely styled minibus, at the end trailed a heavy truck. The town's highway hadn't been cleared for a long time. As this line of vehicles came, dust rose high, giving a very imposing sense. Boss Son's face changed instantly. This was at least dozens of men, according to army style, probably fully armed. If they had designs on his base, how could he stop them? In his base there were considerable stores of grain, gasoline, diesel. Yi County had been an agricultural county. There was a grain storehouse. After the apocalypse, he had already claimed all the grain in it. Now he was about to open up new farmland, turn Yi County into his own kingdom, but suddenly an army came. At that moment the armored vehicle had already reached the wall. Zhu Changqing apparently also saw the middle-aged man standing on the wall, and via loudspeaker he shouted, "Open the city gate." "What do we do, boss?" Boss Son inhaled deeply. His city gate looked good, but in reality it was vulnerable to the armored vehicle ramming. Naturally, there was no resistance. Boss Sun's lips twitched. He said, "Open the gate. Quickly notify below, hide the grain, gasoline, all of it well." The main gate opened, and Jiang Lusher drove the minibus through the wall. Beyond this wall was the place where Jiang Lusher had lived as a child. But now he saw the ancestral house his grandparents had left was gone, replaced by a palace and a moat. Jiang Lusher was stunned. Building a wall was one thing, they even built a palace? After the apocalypse, even a survivor base of 400 to 500 people couldn't build such a palace, right? And his ancestral house had been demolished. No matter what, Jiang Lusher felt a bit uncomfortable. He saw around the palace moat that housing for ordinary residents was grouped. Because the palace took up so much land, these ordinary homes were much narrower. Some were still brick antile houses, fairly fine. Some were tents, old wooden shacks, even houses built with plastic sheets. A slum area, ordinary residential area, and grand palace, such a stark hierarchy. Even after traveling many places in the apocalypse, Jiang Lusher had never seen such clear contrast. "Brother, did you notice this palace and city wall are a little weird? The stones are huge slabs stacked, and there's no cement," Jiang Zhuiying suddenly said. As she said this, Jiang Lusher also noticed. Indeed weird, the rock slabs were huge and neat. Without modern machinery it seemed impossible to build like this unless, ability? Jiang Lusher thought of this possibility. If there was some special ability, such construction might be possible. But for someone to build such a grand palace, yet many people still lived in plastic sheet shelters, it made Jiang Lusher feel uncomfortable. As they passed by, he saw many starving residents, bones thin. They saw the army arriving, some were confused, some excited, some fearful. It wasn't the scene Jiang Lusher imagined of refugees rushing to greet the army with joy. These people, living so badly, many probably starved to death. Jiang Lusher knew that Yi County was agricultural. After the apocalypse the grain reserve should have been substantial, but now it seemed the people still suffered. The class gap was too severe. This was clearly caused by the local rulers. Many times, the desire for power makes people cruel. They might deliberately create social levels to assert their power. Jiang Lusher was thinking this when he saw an RV driving toward the army. The RV stopped and a tall middle-aged man walked up smiling, greeting warmly. "Yi County welcomes you. Long journey, thank you all for your hard work." The armored vehicle came to a stop, and Zhu Changqing jumped down. "You are?" Zhu Changqing glanced at the middle-aged man in front of him. The man was emitting a strong energy fluctuation, clearly an ability user, and not a weak one either. "Haha, my surname is Sunday. Just call me Old Sunday. In this small Yi County, I'm considered a person in charge. I wonder what brings you military folks here." The man surnamed Sun handed Zhu Changqing a cigarette, asking cautiously. Zhu Changqing glanced at the brand on the pack. Hard Zhonghua. In this apocalypse, even homemade hand-rolled cigarettes were incredibly precious, not to mention Zhonghua. Even leaders in the military had mostly quit smoking due to lack of supply. Zhu Changqing didn't take the cigarette. He had been in the military long enough to develop some insight. He could tell that the other party was worried the military had come to take his supplies. After all, in this lawless world, power determined everything. A commander with no moral bottom line could make the army no different from bandits. "Just passing through. We're on a mission, using the road here, and taking a short rest in this town," Zhu Changqing said lightly. All right, since you've come from afar, you're our guests. If there's anything you need, just tell me, son, and I'll do my best to host you. No need to host us, we've brought our own rations. Zhu Changqing waved his hand. But, if Mr. Sun has gasoline or food reserves, we in the military are willing to buy them with mutated beast meat. The price is negotiable. On the way into Yi County, Zhu Changqing had seen that the gas stations and granaries were already cleaned out. Looking at the well-fed, shiny-skinned man surnamed Sun, it was clear he had a good amount of stock. When he heard about mutated beast meat, the man's eyes lit up, but in the end, he still waved his hand and said, "Sir, you must be joking. How could we still have gasoline or food? There are hundreds of mouths to feed in Yi County. Production hasn't resumed, and we don't even have enough for ourselves." Of course the man wanted the mutated beast meat, but he also understood that in the apocalypse, deals only worked if both parties had equal power. Otherwise, the other side might just shoot him during the trade and take everything. "Oh? Is that so?" Zhu Changqing smiled. What he was thinking was unclear, making the man surnamed Sun a little uneasy. Jiang Lusher didn't care much about all this. Even though he could already tell that this old Sun was a local tyrant who thrived off exploiting the people, he wasn't going to talk about overthrowing Sun and distributing food to the public. After all, this was the apocalypse. The strong made the rules. Without the constraints of morals and laws, greed, selfishness, and cruelty in human nature were nothing surprising. Although Sun's lavish lifestyle caused many people to starve, in a way, he did build city walls and protect Yi County's population. Otherwise, this county might not have had so many survivors. Of course, if Zhu Changqing really wanted to seize the gasoline or diesel by force, Jiang Lushur wouldn't mind getting a share either. This was the apocalypse, no one should act all noble. Robbing resources, especially from a tyrant, didn't bother Jiang Liushur's conscience. Turn left at the fork ahead, drive into the alley, go about 700 to 800 meters, then turn right at the intersection. Jiang Lushur said to Ing. After all, they were back in his mother's hometown, and Jiang Lushur still wanted to take a look. The ancestral house was gone, but his uncle, who moved out after splitting the family, had lived quite well in Yi County. He had built a 2-story house, which was still there. Living in a villa in the city was for the rich, but in rural southern China, villas were quite common. 2 stories was considered low. The cost of building such a house was only 1/10 to 1/5 of a city apartment. As a child, Jiang Lushur often stayed at his uncle's house. His uncle only had one daughter and treated Jiang like half a son. His aunt was a great cook, and Jiang loved eating her food. And his cousin Suhan had always been kind to him. When he was little and got bullied because he was small, Suhan would always take him to get revenge. Those childhood days at his uncle's house left beautiful memories. He still remembered Suhan taking him to the mountains to catch grasshoppers, pick yellow mushrooms, dig for crawling monkeys, and fish in the river. It was only after Jiang Lushur left Yi County that he gradually lost contact with his uncle's family. He only knew that Suhan had been accepted to a good agricultural university. Recalling all this felt like a lifetime ago. The closer they got to his uncle's house, the faster Jiang's heart beat. He was afraid he would find ruins, or hear the tragic news that they had died at the start of the apocalypse. As the base vehicle entered the narrowing streets, Jiang Lushur started to recognize the surroundings. Although much had changed, he could still vaguely remember how things used to look. The roads had become cheap cement paths, but with Ying's driving skills, the base vehicle navigated the narrow streets easily. Finally, Jiang Lushur saw his uncle's house. A 2-story building with white walls and gray tiles, slightly older than he remembered. The courtyard inside was still green, with no vines covering the walls, obviously maintained by someone. Jiang Lushur stopped the vehicle. The front door was tightly closed, but the road was clean, suggesting someone still lived there. Jiang opened the car door and called out, "Uncle, Aunt, it's me, Sure too. Are you there?" He hoped to see his uncle's figure appear at the door. Jiang Zhuing also peeked out curiously. She was younger and had fewer memories of their uncle's family. "Uncle, are you there?" Hearing no reply, Jiang Lushur called again. His voice was loud, so the people inside should have heard him. He glanced at Ran Xiu, who nodded, "Brother Jiang, there's someone inside, coming out now." Just as she finished speaking, the door opened. A strong, unfamiliar man appeared. He held an iron rod in one hand, was disheveled, flushed in the face, and looked irritated and angry. "Who the hell are you?" Yelling in broad daylight, "Are you crying for the dead?" Jiang Liushur's expression changed instantly. "Who are you?" This stranger had no energy fluctuation, but with a body like a gym trainer's, he clearly wasn't weak. "You're asking who I am? I should be asking who you are. I live here. Who the hell is your uncle? I've got no nephew like you. Trying to fake a family connection? Get lost, or I'll beat you to death with this stick." The stranger said coldly, then turned and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. Staring at the now closed door again, Jiang Liushur's face darkened. He jumped out of the vehicle. After the apocalypse, the rules collapsed. Jiang Lushur didn't know whether his uncle's family was still safe. At this moment, he was anxious, and now, encountering a man who had occupied his uncle's house, the fire in his heart naturally exploded. Bang! Jiang Lushur kicked the door open with one foot. At this moment, the strong man had just dropped the iron rod and was about to return inside when he suddenly heard the loud noise behind him. He turned his head in disbelief and looked at Jiang Lushur. He never expected that someone would be so reckless. On Boss Sun's territory, he, as one of Boss Sun's personal guards, had actually had the door kicked in by someone. "You bastard, you're tired of living." In all of Yi County, Boss Sun was the emperor. Zhang Xiong, too, was a top figure in Yi County. Who dared mess with him? "I'll smash your skull open." Zhang Xiong grabbed the iron rod and swung it straight at Jiang Liushur's head. The iron rod, as thick as 2 fingers, was fiercely swung by Zhang Xiong. If it hit someone's head, the skull would definitely crack, and the brain might splatter out. After the apocalypse, the law had collapsed. Killing someone, what did that matter? Jiang Liusher's expression was cold. He suddenly stepped forward, grabbed Zhang Xiong's wrist with one hand, and with the other hand, punched like lightning directly into Zhang Xiong's shoulder socket. Boom! This punch from Jiang Liusher was fast and fierce. It struck Zhang Xiong's shoulder, causing severe pain and numbness. The iron rod fell to the ground with a clang. That arm of Zhang Xiong's went limp, unable to exert any strength. Jiang Liusher's speed was too fast, Zhang Xiong couldn't react at all. Jiang Liusher grabbed Zhang Xiong's completely limp arm and twisted it hard. Crack! A crisp sound. Zhang Xiong let out a heart-wrenching scream. Aya! My hand, my hand! Zhang Xiong fell to the ground, clutching his right arm, crying out in pain. His right arm had been crippled by Jiang Liusher. You! Zhang Xiong's voice trembled. The intense pain left him unable to finish a sentence. At the same time, he was deeply shocked. He had thought Jiang Liusher looked like a student. How could he be so skilled? Zhang Xiong had worked out before the apocalypse and kept practicing his combat skills afterward. This iron rod of his had smashed many zombie skulls. Killing people with it was like slicing vegetables. He never imagined he would be taken down by Jiang Liusher today. Jiang Liusher stepped forward and kicked Zhang Xiong to the ground, then stepped on Zhang Xiong's chest, pressing him so hard that he couldn't breathe. At this moment, chaotic footsteps sounded, and 3 people rushed out of the house, 2 women and 1 man. Seeing the scene in the yard, they were all stunned. Who are you? One of the women asked in panic. Jiang Liusher's face was cold. Zhang Xiong was still moaning under his foot. I ask you, where did the original owner of this house go? Let him go, the other man said harshly, but he clearly feared Jiang Liusher. I'll ask one last time, where did the original owner of this house go? Jiang Liusher's voice was ice cold. The man, embarrassed, reached behind his back and pulled out a gun. But just then, whoosh! A streak of black light flashed. A military trident dagger thrown by Ng shot straight into the man's wrist. Ah! The man screamed. The pistol fell to the ground, and blood flowed from his hand. In just a few seconds, the 2 combat-capable men in this house had been completely disabled. The 2 women were just decorations, no threat at all. Their faces were pale, legs shaking in fear. The original owner, we don't know where they are either. A batch of better houses was cleared before, and we were allowed to pick one. The original owner might have gone to the slums. The city wall built around Yi County enclosed limited space. One palace already took up a large area, so the remaining housing wasn't enough. The strong lived in better homes. Ordinary people lived in slums. That was the rule in Yi County. This rule was considered normal, even if the houses were looted, it was the same. But since power determined everything, now that Jiang Liusher had returned, he naturally had the ability to rewrite the rules. Slums? Jiang Liusher's face darkened. On the way here, he had seen the conditions in the slums, chaotic and filthy. The so-called houses were just plastic sheets and planks, unable to shelter from wind or rain. His elderly uncle and aunt living there? They could easily die from illness. Jiang Liusher kicked Zhang Xiong flying, strode out of the building, jumped into the minibus, and started the vehicle. Zhang Xiong's face was pale, about to pass out from the pain. He gasped and stammered to the 2 women, hurry and inform Boss Zhang, cripple this bastard, damn it, the pain's killing me. Yi County's slum area was messy and disorganized. Finding 2 people there wasn't easy. Jiang Liusher drove around roughly but didn't find anyone. So he drove the base vehicle straight to the palace gates. To find someone, it was better to let the locals handle it. Jiang Liusher ignored the guards at the palace gate and drove straight in. Stop the car. Stop. Who are you? You dare break into the palace? Only Boss Sun can ride here. Everyone else must walk. Are you looking to die? A guard saw that he couldn't stop Jiang Liusher's vehicle and was about to pull out his gun, but the base vehicle was too fast, it had already reached the main hall's entrance. The palace was much larger than regular homes, but driving through it still only took a few seconds. Only then did the guards catch up. At the same time, Boss Sun came out of the main hall. Earlier, when Jiang Liusher went to the slums, Boss Sun had already received word, his men had been beaten. According to the description, the attacker drove a minibus. It was obviously Jiang Liusher. Now, the same minibus had driven straight into his palace, stopping right at the main hall, and still hadn't gotten out. Boss Sun's face was very unpleasant. He had ruled Yi County for so long, anyone foolish enough to provoke him had long been executed in public. But this Jiang Liusher, although Boss Sun didn't know his exact strength, he knew he had come with the military. He dared not easily offend someone from the military. Even if Jiang Liusher was a nobody in the army, the military couldn't be provoked. They might just need an excuse to loot the place. What do you mean by this, brother? I already said, guests from afar are welcome. I believe I've given you enough respect. But you beat my men and now barge into my palace. What are you trying to do? Jiang Lushi, sitting in the driver's seat, said, I want you to find 3 people for me. Looking for someone? At this moment, Sun Laoda was filled with anger, but because Jiang Lushi had come with the military, he could only hold it in. Who are you looking for? The original owner of number 38 North Street, Jiang Lushi said stiffly. Back then, his uncle's family had naturally been driven out by Sun Laoda's gang. After the apocalypse, with rules collapsing, people without power could hardly protect their homes. The corner of Sun Laoda's mouth twitched. This kid is asking him to do something but still acts so commanding. Sun Laoda had already guessed Jiang Lushi's identity, likely the leader of a survivor squad working with the military. Just a survivor squad leader, not even a military officer. His whole team had only 6 or 7 people. Compared to Sun Laoda, the emperor of Yi County, he was nothing. But now, relying on the military's backing, he dared act so arrogant in front of him. And yet, he couldn't do anything about it. Truly a dog relying on its master's power. Sun Laoda cursed silently. If not for fearing the military, he would have shot Jiang Lushi already. I'll help you find them. Now you can go. I'll go with them. Jiang Lushi spoke. He only needed Sun Laoda's men to guide the way. As for his uncle's family, he had to find them himself to feel at ease. Sun Laoda waved his hand with a dark expression, ordering the guards to take Jiang Lushi to the slums. Watching Jiang Lushi's back as he left, a cold killing intent flashed in Sun Laoda's eyes. Laoda, should we? A man in his 30s walked up to Sun Laoda and whispered, making a throat-slitting gesture. Sun Laoda shook his head and said, don't touch them. Even if they're just some dogs relying on their backers, the military might use this as an excuse to act against us. I'll endure this. At this moment, in the base vehicle, Ying was driving. She said to Jiang Lushi, Brother Jiang, that Sun guy wants to kill you. Yeah, I could tell. Jiang Lushi said lightly. Just by looking at the palace Sun Laoda built, it was obvious he saw himself as Yi County's emperor. His subordinates likely treated him with great respect, so encountering someone like Jiang Lushi naturally made him furious. Jiang Lushi didn't care about provoking this Sun man. If not for considering the lives of the 400 to 500 local residents, he might have just killed the guy outright. Jiang Lushi followed the guard and drove to the slum area. Yi County's slums were complex and tangled, mixed with the residential area. Without someone guiding the way, it would be very hard to find a single household in these alleys. While Jiang Lushi was searching for his uncle's family, on the other side, in Sun Laoda's palace. In this post-apocalyptic world, Yi County had long lost power, no phones, no TV. Other than seeking women for fun, Sun Laoda had no other entertainment. He had built such a large palace, and of course, he couldn't live alone. His harem was full of concubines. With over a dozen concubines, all with staggered safe periods, it was enough for Sun Laoda to indulge every night. After getting angered by Jiang Lushi, Sun Laoda was about to find a woman to vent his anger. Just then, a woman's voice suddenly came from behind. What a luxurious palace. Over a dozen beauties in the harem, guards, ministers, this apocalypse is hell for everyone else, but for Sun Laoda, it's heaven. Even ancient emperors probably had nothing better. The unfamiliar female voice made Sun Laoda's hair stand on end. A woman suddenly appearing in his bedroom like a ghost, this kind of person was most likely an assassin. Was it the military who sent someone to assassinate him? The thought flashed through Sun Laoda's mind. He leapt forward and simultaneously pulled out the pistol from behind him. Crack! The stone floor beneath Sun Laoda shattered into small pieces, which then seemed to come alive, crawling up his body and quickly forming a suit of stone armor. Who are you? Sun Laoda almost pulled the trigger. Just then, a long whip, like a black lightning bolt, struck out. Snap! With a loud crack, the pistol in Sun Laoda's hand was whipped away. Sun Laoda, don't get excited. We're just here to talk. We? Sun Laoda was shocked. That meant more than one person had come. Damn it, if it were just one, he'd still have confidence in a fight. But with more than one, how could he fight? No matter if they were truly harmless, Sun Laoda understood that now was not the time for rash action. It was best to first assess the situation. He saw 2 people walk out from the shadows of the room, a man and a woman. The woman wore black leather and held a long whip. Clearly, she was the one who had spoken and acted earlier. Who are you, and how did you get in? Sun Laoda asked in a low voice. At the same time, stone fragments were still crawling up his body. We're with the military, sort of, but not the same group you saw before. As for how we got in, if we couldn't even get into a palace guarded by regular people like yours, how would we be able to do our jobs? The one who spoke was the man. He wore a tight black outfit, with high cheekbones, looked dry and thin, almost sickly. He stared at the stone fragments on Sun Laoda's body and clicked his tongue, an ability that can manipulate rocks? No wonder a small place like Yi County has such walls and palaces. You used your power and the laborers here to build all this? All for pleasure, gotta say, you really went all out. Hearing the man's sarcastic tone, Sun Laoda's face darkened slightly. He backed up a few steps, sat down in a chair, and took a deep breath. He had calmed down a lot. You're with the military, but not the same group I met before. Now you come to me in private. Could it be, you have a grudge with the other group and want revenge? Sun Laoda thought quickly and considered this possibility. Since they hadn't come to kill him, it could only be for cooperation. Yi County was a small place, and there weren't many large groups of zombies or mutated beasts nearby. The most likely purpose for cooperation was to deal with that other group. This analysis really surprised me. The woman with the whip clapped her hands. Looks like your position isn't just due to your strength. You do have some brains. You're partly right, we're not targeting the military people. Our goal is just one person, someone driving a minibus. You've seen him, haven't you? Minibus? That brat? Sun Laoda was shocked inside. He didn't expect the other party's target was Jiang Lushur. He had long disliked Jiang Lushur, but didn't expect that this guy had also offended the military. In this post-apocalyptic world, no one could afford to provoke the military. This guy dared to challenge them, he was dead for sure. This was exactly what Sun Laoda wanted. But business was business, there had to be benefits. Even if he wanted Jiang Lushur dead, he had to make the most out of it. Jiang Lushur is following that soldier named Zhu. If I act against them, I'll anger the military. How will you protect me? And, what's in it for me? The rewards won't be small, the man smiled slightly. Mutant beast meat, weapons, you can have whatever you want. We'll give you plenty. When he heard mutant beast meat, especially weapons, Sun Laoda's eyes lit up. Yi County was just a small county town. Sun Laoda's pistol had been taken from the local police station. Seeing the military armed to the teeth made him very envious. As for mutant beast meat, the more the better, of course. Sun Laoda pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, all right. It's a deal. In the western district of Yi County, there was a laundromat, but now, it had been renamed. A handwritten sign was posted at the entrance, washing courtyard. The laundromat had been expanded, using river water for washing clothes, all for the palace women, ability users, and squad members. Without washing machines, all clothes had to be hand-washed. Dozens of people's clothes meant a huge workload. The ground here was covered in mud and standing water. Usually, no one came here except supervisors. But today, 2 vehicles suddenly arrived. One vehicle was recognized, it belonged to the palace. But the other minibus was unfamiliar. Guards got off the vehicle and ran to the gate of the washing courtyard, whispered a few words to the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper glanced at the minibus, then quickly turned and went inside. With muddy water splashing, the minibus stopped at the entrance. Jiang Lushur stepped out with Jiang Zhuiying and Ran Xiyu. At the entrance, Jiang Lushur glanced at the washing courtyard sign and sneered, so pretentious. Inside, many people had already poked their heads out to look. The people from the minibus didn't look like they were from the palace, but how could outsiders wear such clean clothes? And those 2 girls, their looks and temperament were better than all the palace women. Such clean, beautiful people appearing in the apocalypse, it was almost unbelievable. Just then, the gatekeeper came out with 2 people. These 2 looked bewildered and a bit flustered. The one walking in front was a young woman with a dirty face. She was whispering to an older woman next to her, Mom, don't worry. We didn't do anything wrong, and we've always kept a low profile. Nothing will happen. How can I not worry? Last time Li Fang was called out, she ended up taken to the palace and ruined by that scoundrel. The older woman clutched the younger woman's hand tightly. They had been washing clothes when suddenly summoned, it filled them with anxiety. People like them, at the very bottom, lived or died and no one cared. Suddenly being noticed, definitely not a good sign. The younger woman said she wasn't worried, but deep inside, she was very nervous. That Sun guy used to be a local scoundrel with no job. No one liked him, and he couldn't even find a wife despite his age. Who would have thought that after the apocalypse, he awakened an ability and became Yi County's overlord? They walked out with heads lowered, and the gatekeeper said, here they are. The guard stepped forward quickly, thank you both for your trouble. Hearing his polite tone, the 2 women's legs almost gave out. It's over. A weasel paying respects to a chicken, no good intentions. At that moment, a figure strode in, bypassing the guard and walking straight up to them. Sisterhan. The voice was unfamiliar, but hearing that name, Suhan trembled slightly. Since the apocalypse, no one had called her by her name, only ordered her around. Suhan was both shocked and afraid. She forced herself to raise her head and look at the speaker. One glance, and she froze. The person in front looked unfamiliar at first glance, but there was a very familiar trace in his features. Suhan opened her mouth and asked tentatively, "Are you?" "Sure too. It's me," Jiang Lucia nodded. Suhan's face was dirty, but those gentle eyes were exactly as Jiang Lucia remembered from childhood. Suhan was trembling all over, not knowing what to say. She looked at Jiang Lucia, then at Jiang Zhuing. Auntie was stunned too. After a long while, she suddenly started wiping away tears. "Alive, thank goodness you're alive." Jiang Lucia saw their hands. Their fingers had turned white from soaking in water, with peeling skin in many places. "You see, we found them," the guard approached with a fawning smile. "Get lost," Jiang Lucia said with disgust. He turned to Suhan and his aunt, "Let's go. I'll take you home." "Home?" Suhan and her mother were stunned. Auntie tried to contain her excitement and said, "We haven't finished the laundry yet." "No need to," Jiang Lucia said. He grabbed Suhan and his aunt and walked them out of the laundromat. Even after boarding the minibus, they still felt like they were dreaming. And when they saw the inside of the minibus was like a luxury RV, they were completely dumbfounded. Auntie was helped to the sofa but didn't dare sit down. She looked nervously at Jiang Lucia and Jiang Zhuing and said, "Why are you two in Yi County? Driving this car, you'll definitely be taken by that Sun guy. And Xiaoying, you're too beautiful. In this world, beauty is dangerous." "Auntie, sit down. We're going home now," Jiang Zhuing said. Suhan, being younger, was also emotional, but still had some judgment. She had already noticed, the guard had been yelled at by Jiang Lucia and didn't say a word. Normally, anyone doing that would be beaten half to death. She guessed, Jiang Lucia must be an ability user. Otherwise, how could he have so many beauties, weapons, and food? And Jiang Zhuing also held a weapon, not some kitchen knife or fire axe, but a real weapon. Cold, gleaming steel that made one's scalp tingle. Seeing Suhan and her aunt's thin, pale faces, Jiang Lucia took out 2 bottles of drinks. "Drink up." These drinks, they'd never even seen before. Even that Sun guy didn't have such good stuff in his palace. Seeing how casually Jiang Lucia handed them over, Suhan was more convinced of her guess. "Where's Uncle?" Jiang Lucia asked. Suhan and her mother fell silent, their expressions filled with grief. Jiang Lucia immediately understood. "My dad turned into a zombie," Suhan said. In the apocalypse, this kind of thing was all too common. Jiang Lucia felt heavy inside. After a moment of silence, he said, "Let's go home first." "Sure too, home's not that way," Auntie said. She noticed that the minibus wasn't heading toward the slums. Suhan looked outside and gradually realized something. Her heart suddenly began to race. When the minibus stopped in front of her old home, Suhan helped her mother off the vehicle. Both of them still felt like they were in a dream. "This house was already given to someone else," Suhan said. Though she had guessed, she still couldn't believe it. "Don't worry. Now, it's back," Jiang Lucia said, striding into the yard and pushing open the door. He believed that Sun wouldn't be so stupid. That man from before must have already run off. Back in this familiar home, opening the door, the inside was a mess. Broken furniture, playing cards scattered everywhere, a smashed phone, scattered books, etc. It looked like a dump. These bastards knew they had to leave, so they trashed it on purpose. Seeing the chaos, Jiang Zhuing was furious. But to Suhan and Auntie, just being able to return to their home made them incredibly happy. "Sister Han, Auntie, live here from now on," Jiang Lucia said. Auntie stared blankly at the room, tightly holding Suhan's hand. They really had come home. A messy house didn't matter, it could be cleaned. In Yi County, space within the walls was limited. Homes were scarce. A roof over one's head was incredibly precious. After Uncle died, they had struggled to survive. Now, being able to return, even just stepping inside, already brought a deep sense of happiness. Suhan looked at Jiang Lucia with gratitude, her eyes full of disbelief. "How did Shirtu do it? Let's clean up the house first. Shirtu, you and the others rest in the vehicle for a bit." Just returning home, Auntie felt a bit overwhelmed. Today had been so unexpected that she still couldn't believe it was all real. Suhan also looked at Jiang Lucia with disbelief in her eyes. The similar eyebrows and eyes made her gradually connect the young man before her with the little boy from her memories. After the apocalypse, Suhan and Auntie had also worried about Jiang Lucia and his sister. Suhan only knew that they were probably still in college. But now looking at Jiang Lucia, driving an RV, and even able to reclaim their house, this completely overturned Suhan's impression and assumptions about him. Suhan had many questions she wanted to ask Jiang Lucia, but at the same time, she was also worried about something else. Sure too, did you come to Yi County to work for that Sun guy? That Sun guy is no good. He used to be a loafer doing nothing. Don't worry, Sister Han, it's not like that. Jiang Lushur said. Work for him? That Sun guy couldn't even hide fast enough from him. But hearing this, Su-han grew even more worried. Then how did you make them give the house back? Sure too, that Sun guy is extremely ruthless and cruel. Actually, Mom and I don't have to come back here to live, Su-han said worriedly. After the apocalypse, the ruthlessness of the man surnamed Sun had been deeply ingrained in Su-han's mind. She feared Jiang Lushur might suffer under him. Jiang Lushur smiled slightly and stepped into the house. He had no intention of staying in the vehicle, he wanted to help Auntie clean up. But just then, Ran Shiyu suddenly gently tugged on Jiang Liushur's sleeve. Jiang Lushur was taken aback. Brother Jiang, Ran Shiyu smiled. Her gray eyes casually swept over the messy room. This house seems a bit off. Ran Shiyu said this directly in Jiang Liushur's mind. She didn't say it out loud, first, to avoid scaring Su-han and Auntie, and second, in case there were ambushers who might hear it. Even though she hadn't found any ambushers during her scan. I sensed a faint killing intent, faint and barely there. Almost like a mistake, Ran Shiyu said in Jiang Liushur's mind. And there's no one in the house. I'm expanding my psychic field to scan the surroundings. There are other residents nearby, maybe the killing intent came from one of them. Jiang Liushur's expression turned serious. During their absence, the ones staying here were likely that man from before and the people sent by Sun Lauda. No matter what, better safe than sorry. Shiyu, have Sister Han take Auntie back to the vehicle. I'm not entering the house either. I'll circle around to the back door and see who's up to something. Jiang Lushur replied in his mind to avoid alerting the enemy. Ran Shiyu nodded, then turned to Su-han. Sister Han, let's go to the vehicle to get something. Su-han was stunned but nodded. Bring Auntie too. We have some clean clothes, let's see if any fit Auntie. Ran Shiyu said. The three of them, along with Li Yusin and Ying, returned to the minibus. As soon as they entered, the vehicle door closed, and Ying sat down in the driver's seat. Sorry, please sit here for a moment. Ran Shiyu smiled gently at Su-han and Auntie. Then, images started flashing through her eyes. There was a mysterious aura to it that made people's attention sink into her gaze. This change in her eyes startled Auntie, and Su-han was also shocked. An ability user. This girl, who looked weak and fragile, was actually an ability user. Originally, Su-han had thought Ran Shiyu, Ying, and Li Yusin were all Jiang Liushur's girlfriends. In the apocalypse, that was common. Especially since Jiang Lushur had such a good vehicle, it made sense. Although this impression didn't match the Sure 2 in her memories, Su-han still thought that was the most likely explanation. But in front of these girls, she didn't feel it was right to ask. Now it seemed that wasn't the case at all. This girl was also an ability user. That cold, curvy beauty from before had jumped to the driver's seat in one move, clearly skilled. Li Yusin looked like an ordinary person, but now Su-han wasn't so sure. At this moment, Ran Shiyu was quickly scanning within her psychic domain. One by one, spiritual light spots were filtered. Soon, she locked onto one emitting killing intent. That's the one. Found it. Ran Shiyu said in Jiang Liushur's mind. Jiang Lushur and Jiang Zhuiying had already exited through the back door as soon as Su-han and Auntie left the house. Hearing Ran Shiyu's words, they silently followed her guidance and approached the target. He wanted to see what this Sun Lauda was really planning. A few hundred meters from Jiang Liushur's uncle's house, inside a small flat-roofed house. The house looked old and worn out, like it hadn't been repaired in years. After the apocalypse, it had been reassigned. Its current resident was one of Sun Lauda's lackeys. This man was staring at a woman sitting across from him. The woman looked to be in her early 20s. She sat on the sofa, holding something in her hand, looking like she was listening to something. The lackey had been told to call her Miss Fangfei. For someone uneducated like him, the title made her feel like a noble lady from a TV drama. The woman wore ordinary clothes. Her face was clean, but her hair was greasy. Still, her gaze toward the lackey was haughty and commanding. The lackey waited quietly, not daring to rush her. He only knew this woman was a special ability user. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth curled into a cold smile. They've entered the house. The lackey got nervous, then, Miss Fangfei, should we make a move? Their orders were to act as soon as Jiang Lushur entered the house. Wait, they lingered at the door, didn't go in. Said they're getting clothes. Let's wait a bit longer. Yan Fangfei shook her head and said with disgust. They went back to the vehicle. Once they return to the house, we'll strike, wipe them all out in one go. The lackey looked at Yan Fangfei, his eyelid twitching. The order he heard was to kill the guy with the minibus. But Yan Fangfei wanted to kill them all. Still, he didn't dare question her. Killing more people didn't matter to him anyway. Just a couple more minutes to live. Too bad he'll die not knowing I was the one who killed him. What a pity, Yan Fangfei said coldly. Right now, she felt on top of the world. This important assassination mission had been entrusted to her by Chen Biao. Her ability finally had real use, not just serving useless survivors, but proving her own strength. After this mission, she would live better than Jiang Lushi and Li Yusin. Clean clothes, status and food, a safe place, everything was calling out to her. What's the pity? That you didn't get to show off in front of me? At that moment, a mocking voice suddenly rang out in her mind. Who? Yan Fangfei was startled. It was like she had been burned by fire. She suddenly jumped up from the chair. What are you doing? The lackey beside Yan Fangfei was also shocked. What was this woman freaking out about? You guys didn't hear that? Yan Fangfei looked around in astonishment. No one was nearby. The flat-roofed house remained silent. The two lackeys were still keeping watch, and everything seemed normal. Of course we didn't hear anything. How can our ears compare to yours? What exactly did you hear? The two lackeys rolled their eyes at Yan Fangfei with annoyance. Making such a fuss, just trying to show off your ability? Didn't hear anything. Yan Fangfei's palms were sweaty. She knew very well that the voice she had just heard wasn't one of those faint sounds only her hearing ability could detect. It was too clear, as if it rang directly inside her mind, making her feel as though all her secrets had been laid bare. Miss Yan, are you going to blow it up or not? Did they finish getting the clothes? Hurry up and finish the job. The lackey next to Yan Fangfei said impatiently. So what if you have super hearing? If you heard something, just say it. A bomb? So that's a remote in your hand, remote detonator. That's indeed a clever method. That voice echoed in Yan Fangfei's mind again. She nearly lost her mind. How did the other party find her? With her unmatched hearing ability, no one should be able to approach without her knowing. At this moment, Jiang Lushi, hidden in the shadows, had a grim expression. A remote-controlled bomb. The other party actually used this method against him. For ability users, if someone used a sniper rifle for a direct attack, the killing intent would be strong and likely detected. But using a remote bomb, and triggering it from a distance through Yan Fangfei's hearing ability, produced barely any killing intent, nearly undetectable. Even Ying, Li Yusin, his sister, and himself hadn't sensed it. Only Ran Xiyu, whose ability had evolved once, noticed the faint trace of killing intent. Even Ran Xiyu wasn't completely sure. The bomb was probably placed by people sent by Sun Laoda. But Sun Laoda couldn't have gotten a remote bomb on his own. It could only have come from the military. And the fact that the military used such a subtle method clearly meant they were aware of Ran Xiyu's existence and deliberately wanted to avoid her detection. Putting all this together, Jiang Lushi had already guessed the identity of the mastermind. Chu Zhongshan. It could only be him. He had previously gathered intel on Ran Xiyu, though not detailed, just from the battle at the nuclear plant. In truth, Ran Xiyu hadn't fully displayed her ability there, mainly because that mutated spiritual monster was so strange it even avoided her detection. As a result, the military had no accurate measure of Ran Xiyu's power. In fact, not even Jiang Lushi or Ran Xiyu herself knew the full extent of her psychic ability. A remote bomb was indeed a very safe assassination method, but it was narrowly detected by Ran Xiyu. Plus, Jiang Lushi was cautious. He withdrew everyone at the first sign of anything unusual, even if it seemed like a false alarm. If they had gone into his uncle's house, the consequences would have been unthinkable. The entire Shering squad, wiped out. Thinking about this, Jiang Lushi didn't feel relief, but rage. He couldn't accept that his survival depended on pure luck. Bang! With a loud crash, the lock on the old flat-house door was blown off. A cold, gleaming military trident dagger pierced through the door and embedded itself in the wall. Who's there? The two lackeys jumped up, grabbing their pistols. At that instant, blinding blue light filled the dark room, making them momentarily blind. Aha! The two screamed as powerful electric currents swept through their bodies. They convulsed, hair standing on end, veins bulging. High-voltage electricity instantly incapacitated them. At that moment, Jiang Lushi appeared like a ghost in front of Yan Fangfei. Jiang Lushi grabbed Yan Fangfei's soft but slightly dirty hand. In it was the remote detonator. Crack! A sharp sound. Jiang Lushi twisted and broke her hand bones. Yan Fangfei screamed. Ah! She collapsed to the ground in agony. Her once pretty face was now twisted with pain. Jiang Lushi, you. Yan Fangfei trembled all over, her face filled with despair. She couldn't understand how Jiang Lushi had discovered the remote bomb without even entering the house, or how he found her hiding place. We meet again. So it's you. Jiang Lushur grabbed her neck with one hand and lifted her into the air. With his hand clamped around her throat, Yan Fangfei couldn't breathe. She struggled desperately but couldn't break free. The terror and despair nearly drove her insane. Bang! Yan Fangfei's back slammed hard against the cement floor. Jiang Liushur's strength left her back badly bruised. She was truly terrified now, but still clung to a sliver of hope and said, Jiang classmate, I was forced. I have an ability? I can serve you, do anything you ask. In her memory, Jiang Lushur in high school was nearly invisible, had zero presence. Yan Fangfei, by contrast, had been the proud white swan. She didn't think she was inferior to Li Yusin. Since Li Yusin could follow Jiang Lushur and be his woman, then if she humbled herself to serve him, this loser would surely feel a sense of pride in conquering a goddess. These losers always liked having more women. Back in school, they dreamed of conquering the prettiest girls. If she submitted, Jiang Lushur would likely feel gratified and treat her well. And later, she might rise again. You'll do anything for me? Jiang Liushur's lips curved into a mocking smile. Why yes, whatever you say. I just want food, a way to survive. Yan Fangfei stammered. But Jiang Lushur calmly pulled the trident dagger from the wall. Yan Fangfei's eyelids twitched. Her face turned pale. I know I'm dirty now, let me shower first. She felt like she had thrown away all pride. But before she could finish, Ran Shiyu appeared behind Jiang Lushur and said softly, Brother Jiang, she's lying. I didn't need you to tell me that, Jiang Lushur said coldly, toying with the dagger. Killing her like this is too easy, Jiang Zhuiying snorted. Yan Fangfei trembled in fear. She suddenly saw Li Yusin at the doorway. Li Yusin gently shook her head. As Yan Fangfei's former classmate, she never imagined that the one who planted a remote bomb in Jiang Liushur's uncle's house and tried to kill them using her ability would be Yan Fangfei. As a classmate, she had not only wanted to kill Jiang Lushur but also her. Yusin, help, save me. To Yan Fangfei, Li Yusin was her last straw. She knew Li Yusin was soft-hearted and looked at her with pleading eyes. But Li Yusin didn't look at her again. She had long learned the cruelty of the apocalypse. She was no longer that naive, innocent girl. Seeing that even Li Yusin wouldn't save her, a flash of resentment crossed Yan Fangfei's eyes. That bitch, wasn't she just relying on selling herself to live well? And Jiang Lushur, what a petty man. Even with power, once he offended the military, he'd still die. She cursed them in her heart, almost aloud. At that moment, whoosh! A streak of black light flashed. Jiang Liushur's trident dagger stabbed straight into Yan Fangfei's throat. Splurt! Blood sprayed. Yan Fangfei clutched her throat, trying to stop the blood, but she still slowly collapsed. The world spun around. Yan Fangfei fell onto the cold ground. In the final moments of her life, her heart was filled with hatred and unwillingness. She struggled to glance at Jiang Lushur, her gaze carrying a final trace of confusion. She couldn't believe that such a loser from her school days would reject the service of a former school goddess, someone who had once knelt before him. Wasn't that every loser's dream? How could he be so ruthless? That was Yan Fangfei's last thought? Her carotid artery shattered, blood spraying everywhere. Jiang Lushur silently wiped the blood off the trident dagger. After the apocalypse, he had killed many people, but this was the first time he had killed someone he knew from before. Yusin, are you alright? Jiang Lushur asked, his back to Li Yusin. Li Yusin had known Yan Fangfei better, and he was considering her feelings. Li Yusin nodded lightly and gave a quiet To say she felt nothing was impossible. Yan Fangfei's desperate and complex expression before death left a deep impression on her. But this was the apocalypse. Yan Fangfei had tried to kill her. If she still spared someone like that out of so-called mercy, only to let them take revenge later, then she'd be the fool. When Li Yusin decided to follow Shuring's squad, she was already prepared. She knew she would see a lot of blood and would eventually get blood on her own hands. Without that awareness, she would be the one bleeding when the time came. I'm fine. Thank you, Jiang Lushur, Li Yusin said softly. She knew this wasn't school anymore. She and Jiang Lushur weren't desk mates now. Jiang Lushur was the captain of Shuring's squad, and she was a team member. In this world, the survival of the squad largely depended on his decisions. That he still considered her feelings under these circumstances made her quite grateful. Let's go. Time to visit that Sun Guy's lair. Jiang Lushur was never someone to suffer in silence. For Chu Zhongshan's men to plant bombs in his uncle's home, the man surnamed Sun had to be involved. Originally, Jiang Lushur had considered Yi County's safety and the fact that he had no personal grudge against the man, so he thought about sparing him. But now, he had changed his mind. At this moment, 1,800 meters away, 2 men and 1 woman were observing the flat house through handheld binoculars. From 1,800 meters away, even with binoculars it was hard to distinguish gender. But they didn't dare get any closer. They knew how dangerous the Shering squad was, especially Ran Shiyu, whose psychic sensing ability was terrifying. Something happened. Chen Biao's expression was serious. Yan Fangfei failed. She's most likely dead. The man and woman beside Chen Biao were stunned. Brother Biao, our plan was very meticulous. Just in case, we didn't even go within 1,800 meters of that villa. And Yan Fangfei was only using hearing, not sight. That's the least likely method to trigger suspicion. How could it still be discovered? How's that possible? It happened. The plan failed, Chen Biao said grimly. Then should we continue hunting Jiang Lushi? The man asked reluctantly. Continue the hunt? They're already on alert. If we strike again, we'll just be throwing ourselves into the fire. We'd be dead for sure. Chen Biao felt heavy. The mission had failed. He would definitely be punished by Chu Zhongshan. But with things like this, how could they continue? Brother. That old man Chu Zhongshan definitely sent people. They must be hiding in Yi County. We'll find them, Jiang Lushi replied as he jumped into the base vehicle. Ran Shiyu closed her eyes, focusing her mind, scanning the surroundings. She had already searched the 1 kilometer and 1,500 meter ranges earlier, found nothing. Now she extended her range to 2 kilometers. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't stretch her perception that far. It consumed too much mental power, especially such thorough searches. Brother Jiang, in the northwest corner of Yi County, there are 3 ability users. They're strong. Their location is remote, almost outside the safe zone. I don't think ordinary residents would be there. And their power is so high it doesn't make sense. They're even stronger than the man surnamed Sunday. If they were locals, they'd be the leaders, not him. As Ran Shiyu spoke, she subconsciously rubbed her forehead. The continuous searching was taking a serious toll on her. They seem to have noticed my scan. Ran Shiyu said. Ability users weren't pushovers. Just like Ran Shiyu could sense others, there were those whose perception was sharp enough to detect when they were being probed, even if they didn't know from where. Especially when Ran Shiyu's psychic strength was declining, it became easier to be detected. They're going to escape. Ran Shiyu frowned. Her forehead veins popped out, she was clearly exhausted. Stop the scan. Don't push yourself, Jiang Lushi said. Your health comes first. If they try to run, the northwest exit leads to the Zhonghai safe zone. There's only one road for vehicles. If they ditch their vehicle, it's basically suicide. I'll make them pay. Hurry, we're going to that Sun Guy's lair. As Jiang Lushi spoke, Ying had already stepped on the gas, heading straight for the palace in Yi County. V-Room. The base vehicle roared, shooting from the street to the main road, tearing down the road like a missile. After its recent evolution, the base vehicle's performance had reached a whole new level. Yi County was small, and with the vehicle's high speed, they reached the palace gates in no time. That guy again? Stop the car. The palace guards panicked as they saw the minibus charging straight toward the palace like it didn't care about life or death. Jiang Lushi had rammed the palace once before, but not like this. This time, the vehicle was going 150 to 160 kilometers per hour. If it hit, it might flatten the whole building. It was too late to close the gates. A guard opened fire directly. Bang! 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 Bullets from handguns struck the bulletproof glass with scattered sparks. But these low-powered pistols were no threat at all, the upgraded bulletproof glass didn't even feel it. The 2 guards were stunned. They'd aimed to shoot the driver, but the bullets didn't even crack the glass? V-Room. Ying floored the gas. The base vehicle accelerated again. At such short range, the guards couldn't react in time. Boom! Boom! The 2 stunned guards were sent flying by the charging vehicle. The base vehicle almost lifted off the ground, crashing toward the palace's main entrance at 200 kilometers per hour. The sheer momentum heading straight for the building was terrifying. Li Yusin, experiencing this for the first time, couldn't help but cover her mouth in shock. Boom! The gate burst apart. The base vehicle, like a wild beast, stormed into the palace. The harem of Yi County's palace was where Sun Laoda usually indulged himself. Inside it was the Sanfeng courtyard, home to his 3 favorite concubines. Today, Sun Laoda was planning to have a passionate night there. Jiang Lushi had offended a high-ranking officer from the military. Now that the military was going to deal with him, Sun Laoda was in a great mood. He drank a small cup of liquor, took off his pants, and was just about to pounce on the bed to enjoy himself when... Boom! A loud explosion sounded, almost scaring Sun Laoda into impotence. Your Majesty, what's going on? The 3 concubines were all startled. Your Majesty was the title Sun Laoda had ordered them to use. It's nothing. Just a remote bomb. Took care of a pesky little bug. The palace's main hall was some distance from the harem. The sound of the base vehicle crashing through the main hall gate had reached Sun Lauda, and to him, it sounded like an explosion. Of course, a trained soldier would have known it wasn't. A little bug? Was it that guy with the minibus? That blind idiot offended His Majesty, of course he was doomed. Sun Lauda looked like a convict, but in the apocalypse, power was everything. Looks didn't feed anyone. The women Sun Lauda had taken in were confined to the palace, but at least they had food and shelter. They quickly adjusted to their role and began pleasing Sun Lauda. That's right. This county is my turf. If I want someone dead, they won't live. Sun Lauda laughed loudly. That group was already dead. According to the deal with the military men, he could already imagine the guns, ammunition, and mutant beast meat waiting for him. With those supplies, his days would be even better. Sun Lauda felt that Chen Biao and the others had overcomplicated things. Killing one person didn't need such a big operation. They'd said it was to ensure success. What a waste, like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Sun Lauda couldn't help but grope one of the concubines, just as he was about to pounce again. Boom! A second, even louder explosion. Sun Lauda's expression changed. This time, he really went soft. What the hell? Sun Lauda looked toward the source of the sound. Even with beauties in front of him, he tried to stay composed. Probably a second blast. These military people, what are they playing at? Just as he said that. Boom! A third explosion, right behind him, just a few meters away. Crash! Building materials and shattered doors flew everywhere. Sun Lauda felt a sharp pain in his back and tumbled out in a mess. The concubines on the bed turned pale with fear, their bodies trembling. One quickly grabbed a quilt to cover herself, looking behind Sun Lauda in disbelief. This. Sun Lauda got up and looked at the Sanfoam courtyard's gate. His face turned ashen, as if he had seen a ghost. A metal beast of a minibus had crashed through the gate and now stopped just 10 meters away. He immediately saw Jiang Lushi in the passenger seat. Sun Lauda was completely stunned. Weren't the military people supposed to kill him? They'd even prepared a timed bomb and 4 ability users. Ambushes, elite fighters, they had every advantage. How was Jiang Lushi still alive? Now he had driven the minibus right into the palace. Clearly, the operation had failed. Those guys who seemed so impressive, how could they be so weak? Sun Lauda leaped up. At the same time, all the broken stones around him rolled toward his body, quickly forming a layer of rock armor. Behind him, the concubines, though terrified, relaxed a bit seeing him in the rock armor. They didn't know the military was involved in trying to kill Jiang Lushi. They thought Sun Lauda's men had just failed. Now that Sun Lauda himself was stepping in, everything should be fine. They had seen many who opposed him smashed to death by flying rocks. His rock manipulation ability was powerful for both offense and defense. The flying stones could kill, and his rock armor could protect him. This reinforced rock armor could even stop bullets. To them, Sun Lauda's power seemed unfathomable. At that moment, Jiang Lushi sat in the passenger seat, staring coldly at Sun Lauda. Rock manipulation, quite rare. Just then, bang, 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 gunshots rang out in the distance. The palace's rear guards had finally heard the noise and rushed over, opening fire from afar. Who dares intrude into the palace? Courting death. Protect the boss. The clueless guards rushed to earn merit. Seeing his men arrive, Sun Lauda regained some confidence. He sneered and said, I know you're strong, but stepping within 5 meters of me, that was a mistake. He suddenly waved his hand. Stone spike attack. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 sharp stones flew in a triangle formation toward Jiang Lushi. This skill lost power and accuracy beyond 10 meters, but within 3 meters, it was stronger than bullets. 1 stone to the head could burst a skull. Sun Lauda meant to pierce the minibus windshield and kill Jiang Lushi. But, clink, clink, clink. The stones shattered on the windshield into powder, while Jiang Lushi sat still in the passenger seat, looking at him with a mocking gaze. Bulletproof glass? Sun Lauda's heart sank. This minibus had been modified with bulletproof glass? In that instant, a strong sense of unease struck him. He willed the rock armor on his body to thicken, and a heavy stone slab, 10 centimeters thick, rose in front of him. That kind of slab could block even sniper rounds. Now only his 2 eyes peeked through a slit, staring at Jiang Lushi. Damn, this guy is trouble. Sun Lauda was afraid now. But his ability was special. If he couldn't win, he could still escape underground. At that moment, he saw a black tube extend from the front of the minibus. That's... Boom! A deafening blast erupted. A terrifying shockwave burst from the tube. Supersonic airflow caused a sonic boom, and a cone of mist blasted outward at frightening speed. Pebbles were shot out like bullets. As the shockwave hit, the 10-centimeter thick slab in front of Sun Lauda collapsed like a mud wall struck by a flood. The pressure burst Sun Lauda's eardrums, blood spraying from both ears. Bang! His body shot backward like a baseball hit by a bat. His rock armor shattered. His internal organs were destroyed, bones nearly all broken. Wrapped in stone fragments, he lay on the floor like a squashed toad, his blood, guts, and sand mixed into a blur. Sun Lauda's eyes were dull, staring at the sky. Blood bubbles kept coming out of his mouth, like a dead fish out of water. The sound grew distant. He vaguely saw his trembling concubines and his collapsed palace. He really died like this, blown to bits in one move. Why were they so strong? If he had known earlier, he'd never have cooperated with Chen Biao? That was Sun Lauda's final thought, as he died within the very rocks his ability had summoned. Seeing Sun Lauda turned into a pile of mangled flesh, the three concubines collapsed on the ground, pale with fear. The emperor is dead? The emperor, who was once high and mighty, the one they had racked their brains to please, was actually killed by Jiang Lushi in an instant, just like squashing an ant. These women had been selected into the palace early on and hadn't seen much of the apocalypse's cruelty. Seeing a living person suddenly become a pile of rotten flesh, combined with extreme terror, made one of the concubines vomit on the ground. The three guards who rushed in also immediately dropped their guns and knelt on the ground, begging for mercy. Faced with the base vehicle, how could they dare to run? Their legs couldn't be faster than wheels, and with that strange air cannon, one shot and they'd be blasted into chunks. What should we do with these people? Ying asked coldly. Those three guards had fired at the base vehicle before, and in Ying's opinion, they should just be killed. Jiang Lushi said, it was their duty to open fire, but I won't let them off easily either. Let the people of Yi County judge them, anyone guilty, kill them all. Having taken out Sun Lauda, Jiang Lushi decided to completely uproot his forces in Yi County. After that, there might not be any more ability users in Yi County, only ordinary people. But in this apocalypse, even ordinary people must rely on their own strength to survive. They can't depend on ability users to collect food and feed them, no one owes anyone anything. Yi County has walls, food reserves, farmland, and houses. Ordinary people should be able to survive, and they must survive. Otherwise, they're just waiting to die. Just then, the roar of engines came from the distance. Jiang Lushi turned his head and saw an armored vehicle and two military trucks approaching. Zhu Changqing leaped off the armored vehicle. Captain Jiang, what happened here? Zhu Changqing saw the mess of flesh and rock. It was barely recognizable, but he could make out Sun Lauda's identity. You killed the head of Yi County? Yeah. Jiang Lushi pushed open the car door, a flash of cold light in his eyes. Why? Zhu Changqing was puzzled. In his view, though Sun Lauda wasn't a good person, he didn't deserve death. In this apocalypse, powerful people enjoying more was completely normal. No ability user used their powers solely to benefit ordinary people. Someone from Zhonghai tried to kill me. That Sun guy was involved. Jiang Lushi spoke casually, but Zhu Changqing felt a chill in his heart. Kill Captain Jiang? Who? Could it be? Zhu Changqing suddenly thought of someone, Chu Zhongshan. Could it be Chu Zhongshan wanted Jiang Lushi dead? As a military man, Zhu Changqing naturally knew about the grudge between Chu Zhongshan and Jiang Lushi. The hatred of a son being killed, in this hopeless apocalypse, it was a deadly vendetta. Jiang Lushi said, Captain Zhu, I always take revenge. I was nearly assassinated, of course I have to do something. As for this escort mission, since I accepted it, I'll complete it. Captain Zhu, I hope you can wait for me in Yi County for a few days. There's food, fuel, and shelter here. You all can rest. As for me, I need to make a trip back to Zhonghai. A trip to Zhonghai? Zhu Changqing was stunned. The journey from Yi County to Zhonghai safe zone was 500 kilometers. Their military convoy took days to get here, facing many dangers, and now, Jiang Lushi wanted to go back? And his trip likely meant settling the score with Chu Zhongshan. Zhu Changqing didn't think Jiang Lushi was going back to reason with him. Was he going to assassinate Chu Zhongshan? Zhonghai safe zone was heavily guarded. How could Jiang Lushi possibly kill someone like Chu Zhongshan? Captain Jiang, don't do anything foolish. The defenses in Zhonghai are beyond imagination. Zhu Changqing quickly tried to persuade him. Though Zhu wasn't under Chu Zhongshan, his superior Zhang also had issues with Chu. He didn't want to see Jiang Lushi risk his life. The chances of success were too low, and Jiang might be killed. He didn't want such a strong squad to be lost in humanity's internal conflicts. But Jiang Lushi didn't respond. He only said, Captain Zhu, there's food and fuel in Yi County. Take what you need, but not too much food. You can take most of the fuel, but leave some for me. In the days I'm gone, if possible, help clean up the zombies nearby, help the locals restart production, and eliminate the remnants of Sun's faction. I'm heading out now. Zhu Chongqing was speechless. Jiang Lushur had completely ignored his warning. He wanted to say more, to stop Jiang from doing something so reckless, but Jiang had already jumped into the base vehicle and closed the door. Zhu opened his mouth but could only smile bitterly. He knew he was powerless to stop him. Jiang Lushur going back to Zhonghai, what should he do? Really wait here? Without Jiang, Zhu truly lacked confidence. Not just because of the combat power of the Shering squad, but Ran Shiyu's psychic scouting ability was something he valued highly. Maybe, once Jiang Lushur got there and realized it was impossible, he'd change his mind and come back. Thinking this, Zhu felt defeated. As a military commander, he was being led by Jiang Lushur, letting Jiang do whatever he wanted, even making such absurd decisions, and still having to go along with it. Did he even have command authority anymore? In this apocalypse, Zhu couldn't send messages back, he could only receive radio broadcasts from the various safe zones. At that moment, Jiang Lushur rolled down the window and said, Captain Zhu, I have a mother and daughter I'd like you to look after. They live at number 38 North Street. I'll be gone about 5 or 6 days. As Jiang spoke, Ying stepped on the gas, and the base vehicle roared off. Shiyu, scan both sides of the road. First, let's find those 3 small fries Chu Zhongshan sent. Jiang's voice was devoid of emotion. Those 3 had almost wiped out their squad, he wouldn't let them go. Brother, they might be hiding. Jiang Zhuing said, hugging her chain blade. It's fine. We'll find them. Jiang Lushur said confidently. The winding mountain road led out of Yi County. The minibus sped along it. Jiang Lushur never imagined that one day, he'd drive 1,000 kilometers, to assassinate a core member of Zhonghai's military committee. The assassination plan failed, and Chen Biao and the other 2 immediately retreated. They knew Ran Shiyu's psychic ability was extremely terrifying, and with Ran Shiyu's help, Jiang Lushur could keep chasing them. But there was only one road back to Zhonghai. After escaping from Yi County, the 3 of them drove at full speed for a long distance. Even so, Chen Biao was still uneasy. He drove off the main highway and turned onto a narrow mountain road. It was a rarely used route. The road was narrow, and even before the apocalypse, very few vehicles ever passed through it. It was a path for a dozen households living deep in the mountains. Going deep into the mountains was very dangerous, because what the mountains lacked least were mutant beasts. And the noise of a car could easily attract them. But to escape safely from the Shering squad, Chen Biao decided to take the risk. He had no choice. Jiang Liushur's vehicle was too fast, while Chen Biao was only driving an ordinary off-road car. Chen Biao slowed down, driving as quietly as possible along the mountain road. Only after traveling more than 2 kilometers did he finally stop the car. Captain, what do we do now? Asked the female team member holding a whip. Chen Biao took out a cigarette but didn't light it. With a cold expression, he said in a low voice, wait. Jiang Lushur would come to hunt them down, but he would only chase for a certain distance. After finding nothing, no matter how angry he was, he would have to give up. And Ran Shiyu's psychic ability also consumed a lot of mental energy, it couldn't last forever. The 2 team members didn't speak. They also thought Chen Biao's plan was the most cautious one. Even if Jiang Lushur guessed they might be hiding in the mountains, he wouldn't risk going in to search. All they could do was wait. Chen Biao was very patient. Whether killing or escaping, patience was what he never lacked. While waiting, he was also calculating the Shering squad's possible actions. He estimated that, at the minibus's speed, they could catch up within half an hour. When Jiang Lushur found they had disappeared, he would definitely, unwillingly, chase a bit farther. That distance could be long or short, but Chen Biao waited for an entire day. In the dangerous mountains, they made no sound at all. Even though it was freezing at night, they didn't make a fire. They took turns keeping watch, each sleeping 2 or 3 hours. For survivors in the apocalypse, fragmented sleep like this had already become a habit. Whether in the wilderness or in the city, no one dared sleep soundly while surrounded by monsters. At dawn the next morning, Chen Biao started the car again. Go! The failed assassination mission made Chen Biao realize even more how troublesome Jiang Lushur was. Once he returned to Zhonghai and reported to Chu Zhongshan, he would think of another plan. Jiang Lushur wanted to go to the Xingqing base city. As long as they kept track of his whereabouts, there would be other chances. To kill someone like him, success in one try was never easy. But there would be times when he made mistakes. Jiang Lushur couldn't stay alert every single second against everyone passing by him. Chen Biao had failed this time, but there were still many other Chen Biaos who could serve Chu Zhongshan. And to kill Jiang Lushur, Chu Zhongshan had time to wait. Jiang Liusher's biggest mistake was offending Chu Zhongshan. Chen Biao carefully drove back to the main road. As he drove, he listened for any sounds, nothing. Gradually, Chen Biao relaxed. He needed to hurry back to Zhonghai. The other two members also let out a long sigh of relief. They had come to assassinate Jiang Liusher, but ended up being hunted instead. Now, they truly felt like they had escaped death. The car drove along the mountain road, getting farther from Yi County. Their mood became more relaxed. They were already far from Yi County now, safe and escaped. But when they drove around a curve, a huge sense of life and death crisis suddenly descended upon the three of them. Chen Biao looked toward the bend ahead and felt that beyond the turn, a fierce mutant beast was waiting for them. That feeling made his scalp tingle. A mutant beast? Chen Biao slammed on the brakes and grabbed the rifle beside him. When encountering a mutant beast head-on, there was no choice but to fight. He gestured to the other two, and they quietly got out of the car with their weapons ready. All three were trained fighters. As long as they struck first and killed the beast quickly, there would be no problem. Unless it was a level 2 mutant beast. Then they'd be in danger. They carefully approached the curve. Chen Biao pressed against the cliff wall and stuck his head out. At that moment, Chen Biao froze as if struck by lightning. His whole body went cold, and his mind was filled with one thought. How could this happen? Why are they waiting here? On the other side of the curve, the minibus was parked, its front facing them. From the combat compartment on its roof, a dart gun barrel was aimed directly at Chen Biao. That gun barrel seemed to mock him. Chen Biao could never have imagined that Jiang Liusher would be waiting here. After losing their trail, Jiang Liusher hadn't searched for them at all. Instead, he had kept driving at high speed for an entire day, overtaking them, and waiting at this inevitable route. Chen Biao had considered every possibility, except this one. No one would ever have thought Jiang Liusher would be this insane, driving so far out. From here, it was even closer to Zhonghai than to Yi County. Wait. Zhonghai? A thought flashed like lightning through Chen Biao's mind. Could it be that Jiang Liusher planned to return to Zhonghai? Was he crazy? But that was where Chen Biao's thoughts ended. As he was thinking, he reacted quickly, raising his gun. But, how could he have the chance to shoot? Bang! With a gunshot, Chen Biao's body was thrown backward. Warm blood sprayed over the faces of the two behind him. The other two hadn't even reacted yet. Gunfire? Why was there gunfire here? Then they heard cracking sounds coming from the branches above their heads. Blue-white lightning flashed before their eyes. And with a sweeping electric net covering the sky, a bright and youthful figure descended lightly through the currents. You really came running straight into the gun, huh? The playful girl's voice seemed to come from another world. Electric currents surged through their bodies. Behind Chen Biao, the man and woman with supernatural powers convulsed all over, foaming at the mouth. The sudden attack, coupled with the gap in strength, left them with no power to resist at all. Bang! Bang! While convulsing, they heard two gunshots. Blood blossomed from their chests like enchanting flowers, and then, they knew nothing anymore. Boom! The out-of-control military off-road vehicle crashed hard into the rock wall. The front of the car was severely deformed, and the engine was already smoking. It's done. Jiang Liusher sat in the passenger seat, looking at the three dead bodies. One of them, he vaguely remembered, was once with Chu Zhongshan's only son. Drive. Tonight, we'll head straight to Zhonghai Zone 1. At this time, at the Zhonghai base, inside the military headquarters building, 8 military commissioners sat around an oval table. On the table was a finely crafted sand table. In the center of the sand table, an area surrounded by city walls marked the Zhonghai safe zone. All around the safe zone were gray areas, representing the Sea of Corpses. Deep in the Sea of Corpses, a place marked with a red skull symbol stood out, looking terrifying. Slap! A silver-haired elder slammed his palm on the red skull mark and said in a deep voice, "Gentlemen, the greatest threat to our Zhonghai safe zone is the worm beasts. They all come from a single mother beast, and that mother beast is likely hiding right here." This intelligence was exchanged with the lives of an entire recon company. The silver-haired elder wore a straight military uniform, his hair meticulously combed. As he spoke, a trace of sorrow showed on his face. Worm beasts, the name was only recently decided. Even before Jiang Liusher left the Zhonghai safe zone, there had already been a massive outbreak. They emerged from underground, ravaging Zhonghai Zone 1 and the safe zone, destroying houses, killing residents, and causing enormous damage and widespread panic. The military quickly mobilized forces to encircle and suppress them. Although these worm beasts were powerful, they were quickly torn to shreds under automatic rifle fire. But, the most terrifying part was that the worm beast seemed endless. After one wave of attacks, another would follow every 10 days. The Zhonghai safe zone, relying on its thick walls, anti-aircraft machine guns, artillery, and rocket trucks, was not afraid of attacks from outside corpse waves. What it feared most was attacks from within. Rocket trucks and heavy weapons couldn't be used to fire inside the city. Now, near the military headquarters, the ground had been urgently reinforced with concrete to resist worm beast attacks. But building materials were limited, other areas couldn't be protected. The worm beasts always chose to attack in the middle of the night. Even with 24/7 military patrols, many soldiers and civilians were lost in the first moments of each attack. After several attacks, panic spread widely in the Zhonghai safe zone. Many people no longer dared to sleep at night and remained in a state of exhaustion all day. Poor sleep led to weak immunity. Coupled with hunger, lack of green vegetables, and other factors, deaths from illness had significantly increased in recent days. Even worse, repeated worm beast attacks had created many holes in the soil beneath the safe zone, causing multiple ground collapses. Main roads were broken. If this continued, the Zhonghai safe zone would collapse because of the worm beasts. So, in recent days, the military sent out many recon personnel to scout the surroundings and finally trace the source of the worm beasts. They discovered the mother beast and, at the location marked with the red skull, found a huge cave, a natural karst cave with traces of tunneling by giant insects. The mother beast was likely hiding inside. The recon team had thrown grenades into the cave, but its interior was so complex and winding that the explosion didn't harm the mother beast. That very night, worm beasts erupted again, seemingly in revenge from the mother. This left the military at their wits' end. Eliminating the mother beast's nest had become imperative. But launching an attack on the nest amid the corpse tide would come at a huge cost. In my opinion, this task is best carried out by Commissioner Zhang's Third Corps. His troops come from field army backgrounds, and their special units include many powerful ability users. With high bounties offered, we could recruit some more supernatural teams. Destroying that mother beast nest shouldn't be too hard. It would be a great merit for saving all of Zhonghai. It was Chu Zhongshan who spoke, slowly and confidently, with his hands resting calmly on the table. Ha! Commissioner Zhang frowned. Chu Zhongshan, what do you mean? You want my Third Corps to shoulder the entire mission? What about your Sixth Corps? Staying home babysitting? Zhang mocked without restraint. Anyone with half a brain knew this mission would involve massive casualties. In the apocalypse, what mattered most to military leaders wasn't rank, it was manpower. Whether you're a general or colonel, if you had a battalion, you were a battalion commander. If you had a division, you were a division commander. But if your whole division got wiped out in one mission, your title would become meaningless. In this apocalypse, there was no reassignment. Who would hand their troops over to you? Soldiers wouldn't follow you either. Just like the Zhonghai Military Commission, each person held their position through the power of their own troops, not through empty titles. So this mission to eliminate the worm beast nest, though claimed to be a glorious task, was really a hot potato no one wanted to touch. Chu Zhongshan had long been at odds with Commissioner Zhang. In this military meeting, he naturally wanted Zhang's men to take the brunt. The more of them lost, the better. That way, Zhang could be kicked out of the committee. Commissioner Zhang, that's not fair. Chu, do have a lot of troops, but most of them are armed police and patrol squads. Their job is to maintain order and protect the safe zone. If you send armed police to charge into battle, that's just sending them to die in line. How can they compare to your field army? Chu Zhongshan sneered, speaking slowly and unhurriedly. Chu Zhongshan was originally from the armed police. His Sixth Corps was mainly responsible for maintaining public order on the safe island. When the worm beasts attacked the city, the Sixth Corps, stationed inside the city, also played a significant role. In contrast, Commissioner Zhang's soldiers were all elite field troops. Zhang's Third Corps had the strongest field combat capability in Zhonghai Zone 1. Assigning this task to Zhang's Third Corps also made some sense. With one sentence, Chu Zhongshan suppressed Commissioner Zhang. Zhang furrowed his thick brows but didn't speak to refute. Swapping the city's garrison troops with the Third Corps' external combat duties was clearly unrealistic. Old Zhang, what do you think about this matter? The chairman of the military commission spoke. He was the founder and initiator of Zhonghai Zone 1. Although he didn't have many troops under his command, more than 80% of the heavy weapons, including main battle tanks, rocket trucks, and armed helicopters, were in his hands. This also cemented his position as the highest authority in Zhonghai Zone 1. I understand. Since the chairman has spoken, I, Zhang Tianyu, will take this mission. Veins pulsed on Zhang's forehead as he made his decision. The most dangerous task had fallen on his shoulders. What lay ahead was not an opportunity, but a huge disaster. He knew very well his brothers would suffer heavy casualties. Zhang Tianyu's heart ached, but in this apocalypse, sacrifice was unavoidable. If his brothers were all lost in this operation, his position as a commissioner of the military committee would also come to an end. But at this moment, someone had to step forward, or else all of Zhonghai would be finished. I'll take the military order. I won't come back until the worm nest is destroyed. At this moment, Zhang Tianyu's blood was boiling. Even though he knew this mission involved political scheming and power struggles, he couldn't be bothered to think about it anymore. He believed that he was, first and foremost, a soldier, only then an officer. If he couldn't even protect the people, he wasn't worthy of being a soldier. Old Zhang, we'll count on you then, the chairman said solemnly. I'll assign the tank unit to open the way for you. But once near the karst cave, you're on your own. That cave is very deep. Even if we use a large number of bombs to collapse it, we may not be able to hurt the mother worm hiding deep inside. At that point, it'll only provoke even more retaliation. I understand. I'll risk my old life today. I'll charge with my troops. Since all his troops were going, it was meaningless for Zhang Tianyu to stay behind. Better to rush to the front line and fight to the end. Seeing Zhang Tianyu accept the mission, a barely detectable look of satisfaction flashed through Chu Zhongshan's eyes. Zhang had long been at odds with Chu. This involved military committee power struggles, interest divisions, and many other issues. Including the earlier incident where Chu's son was killed by Jiang Lushi, Zhang Tianyu had supported Jiang, even cooperating with him and giving his team a valuable evolution crystal. Now, Chu Zhongshan already saw Zhang Tianyu as a thorn in his side. This worm beast invasion was the perfect opportunity to weaken Zhang's influence. And this wasn't even Chu's scheme, it was within Zhang's duty. One could only say, Zhang was unlucky. During the full lockdown of Zhonghai, the military was on 24-hour standby. Only 2 hours after the emergency mobilization order, Commissioner Zhang led the 3rd Corps out of the Zhonghai Zone 1 city wall. Chu Zhongshan stood on the rooftop of a tall building on the safe island, holding binoculars and watching the large army march out. A cold sneer appeared on his lips. It would be best if Zhang Tianyu could perish along with the mother worm. Commander, no one knows for sure what's inside the worm cave. What if Zhang Tianyu returns in triumph? Behind Chu Zhongshan stood a thin man with dark skin and a military knife hanging from his waist. He followed Chu like a shadow. If the mother worm's nest wasn't that dangerous and Zhang Tianyu completed the mission with minimal loss, it would be a huge gain for him. His reputation would soar, making it even harder for Chu Zhongshan to suppress him. Chu Zhongshan frowned but didn't speak. The shadow-like man continued, Commander, Zhang Tianyu left this time with all his guards. His villa is completely empty. With my skills, sneaking in wouldn't be hard. A few weeks ago, our people went to the Qinshan nuclear power plant. I had someone bring back a bit of radioactive material. Just 1 milligram in his teaware would kill him. To be safe, should we take advantage of Zhang Tianyu's absence? He stopped talking here. Chu Zhongshan remained silent, seeming hesitant. Finally, he shook his head and said, Zhonghai is in crisis now. If the poisoning is discovered, Zhang Tianyu's troops might rebel. That won't do. Let's drop it for now. Although Chu Zhongshan wanted to slowly eliminate dissent and eventually hold all the power, the premise for all this was ensuring Zhonghai base's safety. If the base was lost, all his dreams of power would be meaningless. Night fell, and the entire Zhonghai safe zone sank into silence. But far away on the wasteland, the faint rumble of artillery still echoed, proving that this night was not as peaceful as it seemed. Due to precautions against worm beast attacks, military and police forces were evenly distributed across all regions. This made the defenses of Zhonghai Safe Island slightly weaker. In the military committee's villa district, a small building had dim lights on. Chu Zhongshan's villa was right next to Zhang Tianyu's. They often saw each other, true enemies living side by side. Now, Zhang's villa was empty. Chu Zhongshan sat in a dimly lit room with a candle on the table. The power supply in the safe zone was already scarce. In normal times, it could support the daily needs of military leaders. But during wartime, all electricity was diverted for combat readiness. Aside from the military committee building, even the committee's villas had their power cut. Chu Zhongshan looked at Zhang Tianyu's dark villa outside the window, his lips curled coldly. He took a delicate metal box from a drawer, opened it, and took out a crystal-clear shard, placed it into a teapot, and poured in hot water. This crystal was an evolution crystal. Currently, the Zhonghai safe zone produced extremely few evolution crystals. Since evolution crystals could trigger superhumans to evolve, they were an extremely rare and valuable resource. Superhumans went crazy over them. However, inside the military district, evolution crystals were strictly controlled. Regular survivor teams, even at great cost, couldn't get their hands on one. At present, evolution crystals were distributed only to the most powerful ability users in the military. Each one was immensely precious. Chu Zhongshan, of course, was not an ability user. But he used his privileges to obtain 2 evolution crystals. These 2 were for his own use. Ordinary people are not like ability users. Using an evolution crystal is simply a waste and might even cause their bodies to explode and die from not being able to handle the energy. Chu Zhongshan knew this very well, so he used the evolution crystal to brew tea. 1 evolution crystal was enough for him to drink for 2 months. During these 2 months, the pure energy within the evolution crystal would subtly transform his body, making him stronger and rejuvenating aging cells. In fact, scientific theories had long proven that the human lifespan could reach up to 150 years. It was only due to diseases, bodily waste, and various other factors that organs failed early, causing most people to die before 100. With evolution crystals, the potential of the human body could be activated. According to scientists' estimates, if an ordinary person consumed more than 20 evolution crystals, reaching 150 years of age wouldn't be hard. That way, his current age, less than 60, would actually be just his prime. Losing a child in old age is one of the 3 greatest sufferings in life. But if it happens in one's prime, then losing a son isn't something unbearable. Now, Chu Zhongshan had already decided to become a tyrant of this apocalypse. He would start with Zhonghai, take it over, and in the future use Zhonghai as a base to rule the world. By then, what did a son matter? He could just have another. This apocalypse isn't so bad after all. In the candlelight, Chu Zhongshan looked at the amber liquid in his cup. A faint smile appeared on his lips. Lifespan. Youth. This might be the most tempting thing for those in power. Who knew how many emperors in ancient China, when facing death, sought immortality and eternal life? Even the wise Emperor Wu of Han, when pursuing longevity, became foolish and was fooled by a bunch of charlatans. Commander, you should return to your bedroom. It's too dangerous by the window. The shadow-like man walked to Chu Zhongshan's side and spoke. Chu Zhongshan's bedroom was in the basement of this villa. The basement, poured with concrete, didn't need to worry about worm beasts digging through, and could also avoid attacks from outside the villa, making it relatively safe. All right. Chu Zhongshan carefully put away the evolution crystal. He downed the amber liquid in the cup in one go. Who are you? What are you doing coming into the city? Inside the northwest wall of Zhonghai Zone 1, the soldier guarding the gate was questioning this team requesting to enter. But as he looked at the 2 female members of the team, he suddenly felt dazed, his eyelids growing heavier, like he was about to fall asleep. We're just returning from a military mission. Now that it's done, we're here to report back. Please open the gate for us, brother. Ran Shiyu and Li Yusin appeared at the gate, with Jiang Lushur standing behind them. The 2 women joined forces to activate their mental domain. The soldiers guarding the northwest gate of Zhonghai immediately became dazed and completely lost their judgment. The northwest gate of Zhonghai Zone 1 was in a remote area, near the mountains. Usually, no corpse hordes came from there. The station guards were slightly fewer, but only slightly. In reality, the city walls were still lined with alert soldiers, and the streets often saw gun-carrying patrol squads moving in squads. Even though the defense was tight, it was aimed at zombies and mutant beasts. As long as the person was normal, the soldiers didn't interfere. Ability user teams and military teams were not prohibited from entering or leaving Zhonghai Zone 1. In fact, the military encouraged ability user teams to go out and hunt mutant zombies to reduce the pressure on Zhonghai Zone 1. At this moment, Jiang Liushur's return to Zhonghai as an ability user team was completely normal. The station soldiers would have let him in anyway. But he still chose this unusual way of entering, just to prevent the chance that there might be someone from Chu Zhongshan's side guarding the northwest gate and recognizing them. After the battle at the nuclear power plant, Shearing Squad had become famous. Ability user team, all right? The soldiers opened the gate. The northwest gate was just a small one. Once opened, even a minibus could only barely pass through. Under cover of darkness, the whole process went unnoticed. But there were still some armed night patrol soldiers on the streets. They saw the scene from afar and didn't approach. Occasional team comings and goings at night were normal. Just like that, the minibus entered Zhonghai Zone 1. Jiang Lushur was not worried about the base vehicle being recognized. The minibus they used was a common model. Similar vehicles were not unusual. After putting away the operations room and ramming gear, it was hard to recognize Shearing Squad just by the exterior, especially at night. Still, Jiang Lushur repainted the base vehicle at a car repair shop they passed. Now the vehicle had a completely different color, making it even less likely to draw attention. Jiang Lushur already had a pass for Zhonghai Zone 1. This allowed him to drive on its roads. The pass was posted on the front of the vehicle, so even patrolling soldiers rarely stopped them. In the night, aside from the gate guards, no one could clearly see the faces of Jiang Lushi and the others inside the car. Everything was proceeding very smoothly. The main reason was that Chu Zhongshan never imagined Jiang Lushi would return to Zhonghai Zone 1 after going so far away, just to assassinate a military commissioner. The act was simply too crazy. Without any expectations, there was no defense. Jiang Lushi's minibus drove all the way to the safe island. Further ahead was the officer's residential district. From here on, even Jiang Lushi's pass wouldn't be enough. However, we're an ability user team working with the military, returning from a mission to report back. Please let us through. Ran Qiyu and Li Yusin pressed down the window and spoke sweetly. Their voices carried a bewitching charm. The guard at the gate seemed to lose his soul and opened the gate without thinking. By the way, which building is Commissioner Chu's villa? What's the number? Ran Qiyu asked. The dazed soldier gave a muddled reply. Thanks. Ran Qiyu smiled beautifully. The window closed again, and the minibus passed through smoothly. The gate guard stood there for a while before realizing something, but couldn't remember what had just happened. The officer's residential district was even more heavily guarded. But with Ran Qiyu and Li Yusin present, all inspections were meaningless. So far, everyone who had seen Jiang Lushi's face had been suppressed by the mental domain and couldn't remember what he looked like. Qiyu, activate the mental domain. Jiang Lushi gave the command. Okay. A mental field with a 2-kilometer radius could easily cover the entire officer's residential district. At the center of this area was the villa district, where the military commissioners lived. They already knew exactly where Chu Zhongshan was. Found it, Villa number 6 in the center of the community. Ran Qiyu locked on to the location. The numbering of the military commission's villas followed a certain order. The chairman lived in Villa number 1, and the other vice-chairman and commissioners resided accordingly. The villa numbers basically matched the ranking within the military commission and corresponded to the core number under each commissioner's command. At this time, the base vehicle was 600 meters away from Villa number 6, with a small artificial lake in between. From this location, the villas were hidden in total darkness, nothing could be seen at all. The villa is 3 stories high, with a total of 20 people inside. 10 of them are in the courtyard, walking back and forth. They should be the guards. 2 are on the roof, likely sentries. In addition, there are 8 people inside the house, 5 of them are ability users. Ran Qiyu swept the area with her mental domain, nothing could escape her eyes. 5 ability users on guard. That's pretty tight security. What about Chu Zhongshan? Jiang Lushi asked. Ran Qiyu's mental domain mainly detected position and strength, it couldn't identify faces. The remaining 3 people, their mental energy isn't strong. 2 of them are likely housekeeping staff, taking care of Chu Zhongshan's daily needs. The last one has a weak but heavy and solid mental presence, probably Chu Zhongshan himself. He is located in the basement. The basement? Jiang Lushi frowned. Basements were protected by concrete walls. Sniper rifles and such would be ineffective, assassinating someone there would be the most difficult. Huh? Someone noticed my probing. Ran Qiyu suddenly spoke. At that moment, in Villa number 6, a man sitting silently in the shadows on the first floor suddenly opened his eyes. In the darkness, his gaze was as sharp as lightning. His eyes pierced through the dark, looking straight in Ran Qiyu's direction. Someone. He wasn't a psychic-type ability user, so he couldn't directly sense Ran Qiyu's mental energy. However, his powerful strength gave him extremely sharp perception. He had noticed someone was spying on him. Boom! The shadowed man burst up like a wild beast, smashing the wooden floor beneath his feet. What's going on? Next to him were 2 other ability users stationed in Villa number 6. They didn't detect Ran Qiyu's probing. Someone is attacking. Alert the station troops in the Villa district to search the surroundings. The station troops in the military commission Villa district were highly sensitive. No one trusted their own safety entirely to others, so the troops guarding the villas didn't belong to any single commissioner. They were made up of guards from all the commissioners, including Zhang Tianyu's. However, due to the operation targeting the Worm Mother's nest, Zhang Tianyu had taken all his guards with him. They're about to send an alert. If the alarm is raised, we're in trouble. Ran Qiyu quickly said. Jiang Lushi raised an eyebrow and shouted sternly, move. Buzz. Ing stepped on the gas, the base vehicle launched at full speed. With the base vehicle's acceleration, it could reach 100 km per hour in just a few seconds, and they were only a few hundred meters from Villa number 6, it would only take a little more than 10 seconds. The Villa district roads were narrow. Without power, there were no streetlights, total darkness. The artificial lake created a sharp curve, but none of this hindered Ing. The base vehicle drifted around the bend. Villa number 6 was right ahead. Just then, an ear-piercing alarm rang throughout the villa district. Who's there? Stop! The guards had just begun to react. Holding automatic rifles, they appeared and gave warnings. But Ing had floored the accelerator, no intention to stop. Rat-a-tat-tat. Gunfire erupted, dozens of automatic rifles spewed bright fire snakes into the night. Bullets slammed into the base vehicle, shooting out dazzling sparks. But the fully upgraded level 1 armor completely ignored them. Crack crack crack.